Chapter 585. Their palms were pressed against each other, and then their fingers were interlocked one by one. Big Ice Cube, do you know what it means to have palms pressed against each other? What? It means that their hearts are connected. That's a good explanation. So? You don't have to hold me so tightly. If it's too tight, it'll hurt. Okay. The lovers took advantage of the break to whisper affectionately. She raised her head and looked at the person in front of her. After the starlight shone brightly, she could finally carve his face into her eyes bit by bit, embedding it in the softest part of her heart. His eyebrows were still the same. His eyebrows were still the same. His eyes were still the same. His face was still the same. Women couldn't bear to look away, and men felt ashamed of their inferiority. But at this moment, he looked like a person she had never seen before. The indifferent coldness faded, and was replaced by a seductive look. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The peach blossoms were shining brightly, and there was a wild animal look in his eyes. His gaze fell on her body, as if he was thinking about where to start. Chu Qingyan was slightly taken aback. Why was he so different tonight? What are you looking at? Don't you think it's good to eat? He hooked his finger and her long hair fell on his fingertips. Big Ice Cube, even the way he spoke was different, with a domineering aura that couldn't be avoided. Could it be that this was the real Big Ice Cube? Her head couldn't move anymore. She thought in a daze. Then, her gaze involuntarily followed his slender fingertips as they moved bit by bit. Looking at her hair wrapped around his fair fingers, round and round, it seemed like they would continue to be entangled like this. Continue? He asked for her opinion in a gentle tone, but his body was already leaning over. In his opinion, this was called being polite before resorting to force. Hey, that's not how you use idioms. It's okay, I'll only use it on you. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. Again. She had no strength, but she was between his legs and couldn't move. Sit down, I'll do it. He chuckled. His voice was like a ring striking in the air, lingering in her ears. Her body went limp. Could he not smile in such an irresistible manner? Her body was falling, but her reason was constantly pulling her back, not wanting to fall into this pink vortex. No, I think. Before she could finish, he thoughtfully interrupted her. If you don't want to do it here, then let's go somewhere else. Before she could react, the world turned upside down. His back was already touching the soft quilt. His hands were on either side of her, trapping her between his arms. His black hair fell down and brushed against her cheeks, making her feel a little itchy. She brushed it aside and looked up at him. This was the first time she had seen him from such an angle. The tenderness and love in his eyes made people want to get closer to him. I've never tried it before, but I heard that it will hurt. Bear with it. Chu Qingyan was still immersed in his gentleness, unable to extricate herself, when she suddenly heard his words. His voice was filled with expectation, immaturity, apprehension, tenderness, and indulgence. Then it exploded in her ears. The person in his arms seemed to be a little dazed. Xiao Su curved his lips. A myriad of emotions gathered at the corners of his eyes, and then gradually deepened. He slowly leaned over, his fingers already on her waist. As long as he tugged gently, the pomegranate belt would be pulled apart by him. But at this moment, I know why. She opened her eyes. Why what? Being interrupted, he was not unhappy, but instead, he leaned closer to her and guided her patiently. Today is the last day. Her period had not ended yet. The moment she said this, it was as if a gust of wind had sneaked in from the window, blowing away the heat on her body, blowing away the fog in her mind, and also pulling back her lost rationality. Wait, why did everything turn out like this? Why was she lying on Big Ice's bed? Also, was this devilishly handsome man her family's Big Ice block? Xiao Su still did not understand what the last day meant. He was about to lower his head and continue. Chu Qingyan's sharp senses picked up the sound of footsteps approaching their room. But at this moment, one was on top and the other was below. Although their clothes were neat, but, Big Ice, there's someone. Ignore them. No. Chu Qingyan immediately stood up. But that aura that followed her like a shadow made it impossible for her to hide. She suddenly understood that Yang Yuhuan must have done something to Big Ice Cube. Otherwise, how could Big Ice Cube, with its incomparably strong self-control, turn a blind eye to the commotion outside. Her heart ached. Perhaps Big Ice Cube didn't know who was lying in front of him. "Master, little young master, are you inside?" It was Huoling's voice with a questioning tone. Outside the door was Huoling, who could sense something was wrong and pushed the door open. In front of her was Big Ice, who had already lost his mind from the drug. Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision and wrapped her hands around his shoulders. Xiao was very satisfied with her initiative. When he was about to give her a reward, he suddenly felt a pain in his neck, and then his entire body fell into darkness. Chu Qingyan was pressed down by him and almost couldn't breathe. But Huoling, who could not hear their response from outside, seemed a little anxious. She couldn't care about anything else. She flipped him over and quickly got up. Then, she took off his inner garment and casually threw it neatly on the pole. She shook the brocade quilt and quickly covered his body. When everything was done, the door was knocked open from the outside. "Little young master?" Huoling had just knocked open the door when a cold wind came in. He had an illusion that the pink that filled the room had suddenly disappeared. "I'm fine." Chu Qingyan slightly turned her body, not meeting his gaze. After the shameful battle just now, who knew if he could face anyone at this moment? Although her clothes were neat, but this subordinate did not mean to knock open the door. "It's because master and the little young master did not make a sound, so I was a little anxious. Little young master, please forgive me." It was a good thing Huoling remembered his status and bowed. His gaze did not fall on her body, preventing the marks on Chu Qingyan's face from being discovered. Seeing that the little princess was standing perfectly fine, his heart let out a sigh of relief. He then began to explain his actions. "It's fine. Because His Highness inhaled a bit of Yang Yuhuan's fragrance, he is currently asleep. I was worried that I would wake His Highness up, so I didn't dare respond when you called me. But looking at the effects of the drug, His Highness is sleeping quite deeply. We shouldn't stay here any longer. It wouldn't be good to disturb His Highness. Let's go out." After saying this, Chu Qingyan did not have the courage to look at the person sleeping on the bed. She also did not have the courage to stay any longer. She immediately lowered her head and walked past Huoling out the door. When Huoling looked up, the little princess figure had already disappeared out the door. Why did he feel that the little princess was like a cooked shrimp? Were his eyes playing tricks on him? Chapter 586. The moon was high up in the sky and the thin clouds were like a veil, shyly covering the crescent moon. Chu Qingyan ran all the way back to her room. The heat in her body had been blown away by the night wind, and her mind was blank. She closed the door and leaned against it, gasping for air. Nothing happened. Everything was an illusion. She hypnotized herself. But the burning sensation on her lips, the breath between her lips and teeth that had not dissipated for a long time. His scorching temperature remained on her back and waist, lingering. And his pair of affectionate eyes were in her mind, and she could not get rid of them. Was that person a big block of ice? She had never seen him like this. However, the scene just now had indeed happened to her. Thinking about how he was unguarded against her and fell for her trick, she suddenly sobered up. Maybe he was just drugged. That was why he was acting like this. If he was sober, he would definitely not do these things to her. Because he had always treated her as a little sister. Little sister? It seemed like she was not satisfied with this identity. Her head was so heavy. She held her forehead and slowly walked towards the bed. Could it be that she was drugged as well? Was that why she had such messy thoughts? She threw herself onto the bed and grabbed the blanket to cover her head. That box buried in her heart. She did not want to touch it. She was afraid of the result. Don't think about it, don't think about it. She wanted to be a tortoise today. A lover's fragrance was not intoxicating, but intoxicating. In a trance, a love, a dream. Xiao felt like he had a long dream. In this dream, it seemed like there was only him and another person. He was out of character, hugging the other person and taking as much as he wanted. And she was hugging his neck, cooperating with him and giving him what he wanted. In his dream, he wanted to see her face clearly, but there was always a cloud of fog separating them. No matter how close he got, her face was blurred in his eyes. This woman's aura was familiar to him. He did not hate it. Instead, he liked it. Hugging her, his heart was satisfied. He did not know why he had these strange emotions, but it made him unable to control himself. In the dream, he was out of control. His suppressed emotions were erupting. This version of himself was very unfamiliar, but he didn't regret what he had done. When the sunlight shone through the window and covered his face, he slowly opened his eyes. The dazzling light caused his mind to go blank. Soon he regained his train of thought. He held his forehead and got up. He realized that he was dressed neatly, and the blanket was covering him. He looked around the room and didn't find anything wrong. Then he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Was last night just a dream? There was a light knock on the door, and after he responded, Hualing pushed the door open and came in. "Master, you're awake." Hualing's tone carried a trace of relief. Why did I sleep for so long?" When he woke up, he realized that the time was not right. In the past, no matter how late he slept, he would always wake up at a specific time, but today he woke up late. Hualing walked forward with a trace of contempt on his face. "Isn't it that Yang family's eldest miss? I don't know what she did to you, but you slept for an entire night. Fortunately, little young master entered the room and found you, so he put you on the bed in time." Xiao Su slightly frowned when he heard this. What Hualing said was somewhat different from what he said before he lost consciousness last night. Hualing wanted to tell his master about the little princess Consort's strange behavior last night, but when he saw that his master seemed to be deep in thought, he closed his mouth. When Chu Qingyan woke up, the sun was already high up in the sky. She jumped up and washed up. When she went out, she saw Jin Xian. "Young master just said that if you woke up, you should go down to eat." Jin Xian respectfully said to her. Chu Qingyan stilled when she heard this. Her mind instantly recalled everything that happened last night. She felt her cheeks burning and she couldn't help but cough slightly. "Bring the food up. I want to eat in the room." When she said this, Jin Xian's face showed surprise. In the past, his master and his highness would eat happily. Why was it suddenly so strange today? Yes. Jin Xian's surprise did not escape Chu Qingyan's eyes. She thought that even Jin Xian felt it was strange, so there was no need to mention other people. As for Big Ice Cube, she spoke again and called out to Jin Xian, who was about to go downstairs. "Wait, I'll go down to eat." Jin Xian felt that his master, who was struggling and hesitating, was even more abnormal, but he still followed behind her and followed her downstairs. There was a kind of person who, no matter what kind of environment, would stand out the most and shine brightly. In Chu Qingyan's eyes, Xiao Su was such a person. She had just placed her hand on the escalator when she saw the person sitting upright downstairs. At this moment, he was holding a cup of tea, and in front of him was a table full of food. The chopsticks and bowls were neatly arranged. It was obvious that he was waiting for her. His white and clean fingers were very long. So long that he could wrap her hair around his fingers more than 10 times. Cough, cough. What was she thinking about? She took a deep breath and threw away the charming and gentle feelings in her mind. Then she walked step by step in front of him. When the little fellow appeared in the corridor, he had already noticed. When she sat down in front of him, the strange feeling in his heart immediately appeared again. Chu Qingyan felt her scalp tighten. Since just now, Big Ice Cube had been staring at her, as if he wanted to see a flower bloom on her face. But fortunately, she was wearing a mask at this time, so she didn't lose her composure. But being stared at by him, Chu Qingyan recalled everything that happened last night, and her face began to heat up again. "Big Ice Cube, hurry up and eat, otherwise the food will get cold." She immediately picked up her chopsticks, took her bowl, and buried her head in eating. Xiao Su put down the cup and looked at her. "Eat, eat, eat. Eat slowly, no one will steal it from you." Although he had a lot of things to ask her right now, but seeing her burying her head in eating, he couldn't help but remind her. Chu Qingyan nodded and then ate. Ate. Xiao Su saw that she had been eating white rice, so he picked up his chopsticks and put a few of her favorite dishes into her bowl. Then, Chu Qingyan looked up and saw that he had not put his chopsticks away, as well as his slender fingers. Her back felt a burning heat. Last night, he had used his palm to press against her, and then slowly pressed her against him. Chu Qingyan felt like she had turned into a steam engine, as her whole body kept emitting heat. She immediately forced herself to look away and buried her head in the bowl again. She wanted to finish eating quickly and get far away from him. Xiao took back his hand. He didn't notice anything strange about her and casually said, "Last night." Chapter 587. Last night. Before Xiao could finish his sentence, the person who was immersed in eating suddenly raised his head. His eyes were filled with panic. "Nothing happened last night, nothing happened." She waved her hand and repeated it twice, but after she finished, she saw the surprise in the big ice cube's eyes. She realized that her actions were too exaggerated and immediately shut up. She seemed to be trying to hide something. She instantly went back to eating with her head down. She was an ostrich today. Xiao stared at her intently, feeling that she was guilty. "I haven't said anything yet. Why are you in such a hurry to answer?" he teased. She couldn't laugh at his teasing. "Then what do you want to ask?" Chu Qingyan smiled at him, pretending to be calm. "What did Miss Yang give me last night?" Xiao looked into her eyes and asked. Chu Qingyan choked on her words. Cough, cough, cough. She coughed so hard that Xiao couldn't help patting her back. His tone was helpless, but there was a hint of affection. "Why are you in such a hurry to eat? There's a lot of food, and no one is fighting with you." Chu Qingyan was crying in her heart. "Big ice cube, can you move your hand away? I feel uncomfortable all over." And she didn't want to eat so quickly. She felt that the atmosphere between the two of them was very strange today. Or maybe she was thinking too much. After she drank a big mouthful of soup, she felt a little better. She could speak normally now. "I reckon it's the usual tricks of the brothels. But you have the medicine pouch that Kongling made before, so those things won't work on you. But after all, some medicinal properties can't be dispelled, so you fell asleep all of a sudden last night. After I put you back to bed, I went back to my room." This was the story she had made up this morning. It was basically true, but she had concealed what had happened between her and Gunyanji. She was betting that he wouldn't remember it when he woke up. Because last night he seemed to be a different person, not like his usual calm self. Therefore, she thought that he must have been bewitched by the drug, which was why he did those things. If she didn't admit it, perhaps he would think it was just a dream. Her words were impeccable. He had indeed fallen asleep, but Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked at her. His intuition told him that things were not that simple. However, the little fellow seemed to be unwilling to talk more about it, so Xiao stopped the idea of asking. Two people, one wearing a mask and the other wearing a veiled hat, each with their own thoughts. Chu Qingyan had finally finished the longest meal she had ever had. She raised her hand to wipe her lips, but the moment she raised her hand, she instantly put it down. No, she had to find a place to calm down. Otherwise, when she faced the big ice cube, she would always recall yesterday's events. "I'm full." She stood up and walked away quickly after saying this. Xiao held his chopsticks and looked at her fleeing figure. The strange feeling in his heart became even stronger. The spring sun was bright, and the spring breeze was warm. Because the two masters had woken up late, the trip was pushed back and they planned to leave after lunch. So Turin, Huiling, and Jean Xian were lying on the eaves and basking in the sun. They were currently slacking off. "Why did you appear so late last night?" Turin asked with a puzzled expression. Knowing that Turin was asking about Yang Yuhuan breaking into his master's room, Huiling stopped chewing on the grass and smiled slyly. "Wasn't I creating an opportunity for Master and the little princess? Didn't they say that if there was a love rival, it would be easier to promote the progress of the relationship?" Turin looked at him expressionlessly. "And the result?" Huiling gave an embarrassed smile. Jean Xian continued, "Screwed up." When the words fell, Huiling's smile became even lower as if he wanted to reduce his presence. "I also don't know why Master and the little princess looked a bit strange today. I really wanted to create an opportunity for them, but it didn't go as I wished. Last night, I was really late by the time it takes to make a cup of tea before knocking on the door." Huiling sighed. As time passed, as the young Wangfei grew up, as the master's love for the young Wangfei increased, they had long regarded the young Wangfei as their proper mistress. It was a pity that for some reason, the relationship between the master and the young Wangfei seemed to be stuck at the same level as it was 4 or 5 years ago. It was a pity for the subordinates who were watching the show. They wanted to see the other side of the master other than his calm and self-control, but unfortunately they couldn't. Let nature take its course. Turin looked at the blue sky above his head and smiled. Master and the little princess only lacked a layer of paper between them. Since there was no one else, they could slowly get used to each other. There was no use for them as outsiders to be anxious. Xiao was standing in the room at this time. He was holding the mask that the little fellow had left in his room last night. Although she was wearing another mask today, he still recognized it as hers. What happened to the little fellow in his room last night? To think that he would even lose his mask. Was it really like she said, that she would only send him back to his bed when he was unconscious? Then those scenes in his memories, did they really only exist in his dreams? But that real feeling. He could not think of anyone else that could enter his room and break through his defenses. However, if that person was the little fellow, his breathing couldn't help stopping. Towards the little fellow could it be? He closed his eyes and did not dare keep thinking about it. At this time, there was the sound of voices coming from outside. He slowly walked to the window and looked down. He saw her wearing a bright red robe, standing under the mulberry tree. Her face was covered with a silver mask, and her black hair was tied up high, fluttering in the wind. Red robe, black hair, red lips, white teeth. This scene had a strong impact on his eyes. He seemed to rarely see her from such an angle. 4 or 5 years of training had washed away her childishness and immaturity. She was slender and elegant, no longer the same as 5 years ago. Holding a cloth towel to help him wipe his body, she said to herself, "It seems that I picked up a trouble." The little village girl was no longer the timid 9th miss of the Chu family, who stood in front of him when they first met again. He suddenly had a shocking discovery. His little fellow seemed to have grown up. She was no longer the little girl who would be tired of giggling in his arms. She would not hug his arm and act coquettishly to appease him. This discovery made him a little confused, at a loss, and even a little flustered. It was as if something had changed, but there was still a layer of fog in front of him. He could not see through it and could not understand it. At this time, a figure appeared in the corner of his eyes. It was the 2nd miss of the Yang family, Yang Xiaohuan. At this time, she walked in front of the little fellow and said something. Xiao's face suddenly became a little unhappy. He did not analyze the tangled thoughts in his heart. Instead, he turned and went downstairs. Chapter 588. The sun shone brightly, and Chu Qingyan felt that the spring day gave people a warm feeling. She stood under the mulberry tree and looked at the green leaves. Her mood inexplicably improved, and the messy thoughts of Su Yi in her mind were immediately abandoned by her. The swallow grass was like jade, and the spring mulberry trees were green. What a scene of spring! This should be the season for silkworms to spin silk. Everything was waiting to bloom, and the year's plan was in spring. It was the season of new life again. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but bend down to stretch her muscles. Her back was sore from sleeping last night, and she didn't know if it was because Big Ice Cube's movements were too big, but she found that there were many bruises on her waist. Cough cough, she said she wouldn't think about it, so calm down. She had just moved a few times when a person appeared in front of her. It was Yang Xiaohuan. Chu Qingyan looked at her indifferently. Last night's matter, if she connected the dots, she would know that it was related to her. There couldn't be such a coincidence. Perhaps it was the alienation in Chu Qingyan's eyes that made Yang Xiaohuan's heart tremble. She knew that Big Brother Chu blamed her. "I'm sorry, Big Brother Chu, last night I..." Second young Miss Yang. "Don't do evil because it's small, and don't do good because it's small. Don't treat other people's kindness as a weapon that can hurt others. This way, you will disappoint those who treat you sincerely." Chu Qingyan really felt that this little girl was pretty good. She was able to evoke her memories of her cousin in the modern world, but it was a pity. I was wrong. Yang Xiaohuan said 2 sentences, and her tears were about to fall. She really didn't know that her sister asked her to send people away to do such a thing. She had already blamed herself for last night, and only now did she have the courage to apologize to Big Brother Chu. Whether Big Brother Chu accepted it or not, she had to say it. All right, let's go back. We still have to travel in the afternoon. Chu Qingyan saw the dark circles under her eyes and thought that she hadn't slept all night. She couldn't help but soften her heart. Perhaps this little girl was coerced and used by her sister, so she couldn't be too harsh on her. However, although she was soft-hearted, she would not pity anyone who schemed against her big ice cube, regardless of whether they were the main culprits or accomplices. Young Xiaohuan bit her lips. She knew that Big Brother Chu was already giving her face by doing this. Her heart was filled with sorrow. After nodding, she turned around and prepared to leave. However, she almost bumped into the person behind her. Young Xiaohuan glanced at Xiao Su, who was wearing a veil hat. She took a step back and ran in another direction. You scared him away? Chu Qingyan raised her head when she heard the voice. When she saw that it was him, she was slightly stunned. She didn't know where to put her hands, and her posture became a little unnatural. Do I look like the kind of person who would scare people? Chu Qingyan replied as if nothing had happened. Xiao Su sized her up and said, You do. Chu Qingyan was speechless. Can you not be so sarcastic? Chu Qingyan had already forgotten her embarrassment, and couldn't help but retaliate. Seeing that she was no longer avoiding him, Xiao Su's mood improved a lot. Okay. Xiao Su went with the flow. It was rare to see such an easy-to-talk to big ice cube. Chu Qingyan felt that she was stuck and didn't know what to say. At this moment, Xiao Su didn't seem to feel the subtle atmosphere between the two of them. With his hands behind his back, he asked the question that he had been wondering. Why are you treating that little girl differently? That little girl? Chu Qingyan didn't understand at first, but later she realized that Big Ice Cube was referring to young Xiaohuan. She squinted at the sun in the sky. The sunlight wasn't too glaring, and it was very warm when it fell on her body. There's a sense of déjà vu about her, like an old friend. There was a sense of loss in her voice that he had never heard before. Xiao Su turned and looked at her. Her eyes were filled with nostalgia, emotion, and a touch of sadness. Then he heard her sigh softly to herself. Unfortunately, she's not. This little girl made his heart ache inexplicably. What kind of old friend? Maybe I can help you find her. Chu Qingyan recovered from his question and laughed self-deprecatingly. You can't find her because she's not here. They weren't in ancient times, but in the modern world 1,000 years later. Xiao Su looked at her deeply, not knowing what to say to comfort her. Chu Qingyan wasn't used to the silence between the two of them. She rubbed her head. She seemed to be a little sentimental today. She pulled herself together and smiled sweetly at Xiao Su. It's okay. Nothing can be forced. Let nature take its course. If coming here was fate's arrangement, then so be it. Besides, her parents, Big Ice Cube, Sister Yen Luo, Ethereal, Hualing and Jean Xian were here. Her fate wasn't that bad. Chu Qingyan adjusted her mood. Just as she raised her head, she saw a black shadow land on her face. She instinctively wanted to retreat, but he held her shoulders and ordered her in a magnetic voice, Don't move. She didn't dare to move at all. She felt the person in front of her getting closer to her. Then he leaned forward and looked at her face intently. What's wrong? She asked softly. As soon as her voice fell, a warm fingertip fell on her lips. Her whole body stiffened. This time, without him saying anything, she didn't even dare to move. All her senses seemed to be focused on her lips where his fingertip had touched. It was burning hot. She felt as if she had returned to last night. The same two people, the same actions and the same temperature. Give up. In a corner of the courtyard, Yang Yuhuan glared viciously at the two people under the mulberry tree. Then, she turned around and glared fiercely at Yang Xiaohuan. Sister, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Yang Xiaohuan was frightened by her sister's twisted expression, and couldn't help but retreat. Yang Yuhuan sneered. Do you know why I didn't succeed last night? Yang Xiaohuan wanted to say that it was because she had shamelessly delivered herself to him. Young Master Xiao looked like a decent young master. How could he do such a thing? However, she was afraid that her sister would go crazy, so she chose to shake her head. Yang Yuhuan averted her gaze and looked at the two entangled figures under the mulberry tree. The anger from last night's humiliation surged up. Because he said that he doesn't like women getting close to him. I finally understand now. He likes men, not women. That's why I was thrown out by him. Yang Yuhuan trembled with anger when she thought about how he had mercilessly kicked her out last night. That's why he treated that Chuyin differently. Look, their actions were so intimate. If they weren't lovers, how could they do such a thing? So you should give up. Chuyin is his boy toy. Yang Xiaohuan's face turned pale from Yang Yuhuan's words. Brother Chu was young Master Xiao's boy toy? How could that be? But how could young Master Xiao explain Brother Chu's actions? Yang Yuhuan's appearance wasn't bad and her figure was slim. Any man under the effects of that powder would be moved. Unless that person had a problem with his sexual orientation. So Xiaosu was defined by her as a homosexual. Chapter 589. Big Sister, don't speak nonsense. Yang Xiaohuan gathered her courage to refute her. She would not allow her to slander Big Brother Chu like this. Yang Yuhuan was currently in a humiliated and frustrated mood. Hearing her normally weak little sister dare to talk back to her today. Even more vicious words came out of her mouth. You wouldn't really have set your heart on that Chu Yan, right? Don't you see him wearing a mask all day? Maybe he doesn't have the face to see people. Young Master Xiao has already said that he doesn't like girls and Chu Yan has always been by his side. Maybe he has already been touched by him. Every time Yang Yuhuan said a word, she successfully saw her face turn a bit paler. The pent-up anger in her heart was finally released. She couldn't help speaking to her heart's content, saying all kinds of vicious words. Suddenly, a sword was placed against her neck. Yang Yuhuan was scared by this cold light, and her legs almost went soft. She slowly turned around and seeing that it was young Master Zhao's subordinate, her face immediately lost all blood. What else do you have to say? Just say it. Let's see if your tongue is faster, or if this one sword is faster. Hualing had a smile on his face, but the words he said were enough to make people feel fear. Yang Yuhuan looked down at the sword that was gradually approaching her throat. Her eyes suddenly rolled back, and she fainted from fright. Really useless, fainting from fright every day. You still dare to speak nonsense with this little bit of courage. Hualing pulled back his sword and said in disdain. Then Hualing looked at Yang Xiaohuan. When your big sister wakes up, tell her to take a detour around my family's carriage. If she still has any ideas, this one doesn't mind turning her into a ghost. Hualing quickly left after saying this. He walked out of the corridor and quickly jumped onto the roof. Then he followed Turin and Jean Xian back up and asked in a low voice, "How far has it developed?" They were just watching the warm interaction between their master and the little princess, so how could they know there were so many gossips below? He couldn't help jumping down and teaching that Yang Yuhuan a lesson. He didn't know if he missed a good show or not. See for yourself. Turin ignored him and let him see the scene. What could be more direct than a live broadcast? In fact, Xiao Su did tell Yang Yuhuan that he didn't like women getting close to him. But why didn't he feel disgusted when Chu Qingyan got close to him? In Xiao Su's subconscious mind, there were 3 types of people in his life. One was men, one was women, and the last was his little one. His little fellow would not mix with the other 2 types of people. That was a special existence in his life. However, there was no need for him to tell anyone about this, nor was there any need for him to explain. Therefore, the conclusion that Yang Yuhuan came to through her own arguments was not tenable. This was because she had not considered that Xiao Su could not be judged by an ordinary person. If he could be seen through so easily, then the crafty war god would not have appeared on the battlefield back then. As for the 2 people under the mulberry tree, they still maintained the same posture. Xiao Su's finger caressed the corner of her lips, but he frowned. What's wrong? At first, she thought that the ice block wanted to do that to her again last night, but when she saw that there was no charm in his eyes through the veil, she thought that maybe she was overthinking. Sure enough, he just wanted to help her wipe the traces left on the corner of her mouth. Cough cough. She probably ate too quickly just now, so she didn't notice the juice on her face, but the ice block found it. She was really embarrassed. However, his fingers seemed to have magic, making her body heat up involuntarily. I can't wipe it off. He was a little embarrassed. She was even more embarrassed. Just as she was about to take a step back and say that she would go back to her room to wash it off, he spoke again. Your face is very hot. Do you have a fever? Xiao Su felt that the skin under his fingertips was as hot as the Zilongbao he was holding in the afternoon. It was soft and hot, as if something had drilled into his blood. And then it cycled back and forth until it drilled into his heart. It was a little numb and a little itchy. When Xiao Su's words fell, Chu Qingyan's face heated up. Her whole body was like a steam engine. She thought that if it was winter now, her body would probably be smoking. She lowered her head, her cheek avoiding his fingertips, and said in a low voice, No, it's just a little hot. Xiao Su looked at her bashful look with her head lowered. He was a little dazed. His gaze fell on the corner of her lips, and his heart moved. A gust of wind blew, and he suddenly woke up. Then I'll go back and wipe it off myself. Chu Qingyan saw that he did not speak for a long time, and planned to go back to her room to cool off. But just as she finished speaking, her wrist was grabbed by him, and then he walked forward. No need, just get a bucket of water and you can wash it directly. Chu Qingyan did not understand the meaning behind his words. She only felt that the place where she was hot had turned from her cheek to her wrist. Where was the big ice cube taking her? Xiao Su did not expect that he would grab her wrist, but since he had already grabbed it, he did not care about this moment or two. He brought her to the side of the well, took the wooden bucket, and then placed it in the well, easily fetching a bucket of water. Chu Qingyan was attracted by his actions, her eyes wide open. In the past, when she went to her grandmother's house, she had never been able to successfully fetch a bucket of water. Handkerchief. He squatted down and extended his hand towards her. She rarely looked down at him so condescendingly, because he was always so much taller than her. At this moment he faced the sunlight. The noon sun was already a little glaring, and he could not help but squint at her. Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered something that her best friend had once said to her. If in this life, someone is willing to lower his noble body in front of you, then marry him. Then marry him. Then marry him. Then marry him. This sentence kept repeating in her mind, but in the end, she could not resist the sentence, which was more like a little sister. She suddenly sobered up, and then immediately reached into her sleeve, took out the handkerchief, and prepared to bend down and dip it in water to wipe it. But the other big hand was faster than her. He took her handkerchief, dipped it in water, and then took it out to dry. He straightened his body, put the handkerchief close to her lips, and said while wiping, You don't have a mirror, so how can you see? What if you can't wipe it clean? He spoke in a serious tone, but his movements were extremely gentle. Chu Qingyan answered in a muffled voice, Yeah. What should she do? It seemed like she was becoming more and more dependent on him. What exactly did she want from him? If she didn't want to be his little sister, then what other identity did she want other than being his little sister? This kind of problem was a headache. Warm so warm. Soft so gentle. The three peeping on the roof seemed to see that not long after, they would be able to take the little prince and little princess to play everywhere. Especially Hualing, whose mouth was about to become crooked from smiling. However, for things like love and affection, it was best for things to happen naturally. Chapter 590. It was a warm afternoon as the group set off again. Although Yang Yuhuan's matter happened late at night, there were still quite a few people who knew about it. The Yang family felt that they had lost all their face. Mrs. Yang kept a strict watch on Yang Yuhuan, restricting her movements. She even sent someone to bring silver notes to Xiao Su. But in Chu Qingyan's eyes, this Mrs. Yang wanted to use the money to shut their mouths. She did not want to affect her daughter's reputation because of this. There was no wall in this world that didn't have a crack. Even if they didn't say anything, it would be hard to stop the Yang family's mouths. Chu Qingyan felt that losing a woman's reputation was already a great punishment, so she did not pursue Yang Yuhuan anymore. But she heard Hualing and the others' discussions on the way. This Yang Yuhuan often used her little sister as a punching bag. Chu Qingyan gave a sigh. This little girl throwing herself into this family, it really was a sad thing. She didn't know what Big Ice Cube was thinking, but he sent someone to knock on Yang Yuhuan's head. After that, they never heard of Yang Yuhuan abusing her little sister again. Originally, Chu Qingyan did not want to stay in the same carriage as him, but Hualing told her in the afternoon that for some reason, the horse had started to vomit and have diarrhea. It needed to rest for 2 days, so she had no choice but to stay in the carriage. There was only one carriage, and that was Big Ice Cube's carriage. She thought of the intimate contact between the two of them before, and felt a bit scared. But it was not good to have Hualing and the others give up a horse, so she could only board Big Ice Cube's carriage in the end. Seeing the little princess get on the carriage, Hualing patted the horse that was jumping around on the side. His smile was a bit sly. "Horse, your master will be with you again in 2 days. I'll have to trouble you to pretend to be sick for now." Chu Qingyan nodded without much thought, but with a strong presence beside her, she did not dare sleep easily. "Sleep if you're tired." Xiao Su's words sounded. Chu Qingyan looked at him subconsciously, and saw that his eyes were still on the book. She nodded and found a spot in the corner. Then she fell asleep in a daze. Not long after, he heard her even breathing. Xiao Su closed the book that had been on the first page since they got on the car, and casually placed it on the small table. Then he reached out and picked up the person who was almost stuck to the wall of the car. Finally, he placed her on the soft couch beside him. Today, he felt that the little fellow was avoiding him. It was as if he was some kind of terrifying thing, not daring to look directly at him. Therefore, in order to prevent her from escaping further, he could only pretend to read. Now that she was asleep, he looked at her openly. In order to let her sleep comfortably, he took off the mask on her face. When she removed the mask, her beautiful face fell into his eyes. He looked at this otherworldly face and couldn't help but raise his hand to brush away the strands of hair on her cheek, tucking them behind her ear. His gaze moved from her eyebrows to her eyes, nose, and finally landed on her bright red lips. He felt his body heat up slightly. Finally, he closed his eyes and forced himself to look away. Then he picked up the brocade quilt beside him and covered her with it. He picked up the book again, wanting to calm his messy heart. Chu Qingyan slept all the way until evening. At that time, they had just arrived at Fu City. The Yang family invited them to rest at the Yang Manor for a night to thank them for their help on the road. But anyone could see that the Yang family was just being polite. They wanted Chu Qingyan and the others to stay far away, because they wanted to protect the reputation of the 2 young misses of the Yang family. Originally, it was only Yang Yuhuan's matter. Later, someone spread the news that Yang Xiaohuan had taken a fancy to Chu Qingyan. So Mistress Yang felt that it was best for Chu Qingyan and the others to leave. Chu Qingyan and the others did not care. After a few words, they parted ways with the Yang family. But when they parted, Chu Qingyan seemed to see a tear-stained face when she brushed past the carriage of the Yang family's womenfolk. She said casually, "We will meet again if fate wills it." That tear-stained face immediately revealed a smile, but Chu Qingyan, who was walking further and further away, could not see it. "Master, after passing through Fu City, we will be able to reach the small village in front of the Fuli mountain range in 2 days and meet up with our people there." The Earth Spirit reported on the night when they were resting at the inn in Fu City. "And, how is the matter in Li City being handled?" Xiao Su thought of the matter and asked. "We caught 3 or 4 officials and seized 100,000 taels of silver. 50,000 taels of silver were stolen from the disaster relief officials 6 years ago. We broke the bandits' lair and rescued more than 10 innocent women who were trapped. Among them, the bandits led by Tiger Wang had more than 160 lives on their hands. There was no lack of old, weak, women and children. Their methods were extremely vile." When it came to this matter, Turin, who rarely got angry, could not help but be a little angry. Xiao Su's face was stern. "Let Lu Rui punish them severely." "Yes." Turin responded. Chu Qingyan was also full of indignation. These people were really too abominable. They did not even let the elderly and children go. It was simply an insult to the human race. Big Ice Cube, didn't they say that at birth, people are inherently good? Why have we seen so much cruelty and bloodshed in the past few years? She could understand if those officials were not benevolent, and those who held power were scheming against each other. But why would even the common people kill each other? Because when there are too many temptations, people's hearts will be blinded. Xiao Su looked at her with a gaze that even he himself did not notice was gentle. Chu Qingyan sighed. A peaceful world did not exist in ancient times. The next day, the group once again set out on their journey towards the Fuli mountain range. At this time, on the other side of the Fuli mountain range, there was also a group of people secretly advancing towards the Fuli mountain range. Your Highness the Crown Prince, we will arrive in 2 days. A guard reported to his master, who was resting with his eyes closed in front of him. So our journey is still quite fast. Peng Huang slowly opened his eyes. His deep blue eyes reflected a different kind of brilliance under the sunlight. He was wearing a blue brocade robe with a willow leaf golden cape, which set off his sturdy and robust body. At this time, he was casually leaning against a tree trunk with a tired and sharp expression. Our horses are all of the best quality. This trifling journey is nothing. The subordinate smiled somewhat complacently. And don't be happy too early. Raise your vigilance, and be on guard against this prince's good brothers. If our whereabouts are discovered, this journey will be troublesome. This prince does not want to die before achieving success. Peng Huang's lips curved into a smile, but it made people feel cold for no reason. Yes, this subordinate will remember. The subordinate immediately put away his smile and respectfully replied, "You can leave. We will continue setting out in another hour." Peng Huang casually waved his hand. After the subordinate left, Peng Huang stood up straight and looked at the rising sun with his hands behind his back. An unfathomable light flashed through his eyes. Chapter 591. 2 days passed very quickly, but for Chu Qingyan, it was like a long period of suffering, because she had to stay in the same carriage as the ice cube. She used to think that it was a pleasure, but now she didn't know why, but her attitude changed. As long as she stayed with him, she would feel awkward. Finally, after that period of time, they arrived at a small village at the foot of the Fuli mountain range. This small village didn't exist 4 years ago, because no one would build a small village in such a remote place. But now there was a dilapidated village in front of them. Greetings to Master, little princess. The burly man brought people to welcome the 2 masters. Chu Qingyan looked at him and teased with a smile. Burly man, have you been neglecting your training recently, and have you grown bigger? Hearing this, the burly man's face trembled. He clearly felt that his master glanced at him after little princess said that, and he immediately said with pity, "Little ancestor, what are you saying? Can't you see that this subordinate is much thinner than last year?" Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. "It seems that my eyes are playing tricks on me." The burly man blushed with shame. This little princess is becoming more and more mischievous, and is no longer the little girl that they can bully at will. Under the guidance of the burly man, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan stayed in a house. It was a very simple house, but although it was small, it had all the essentials. This was also to deceive others. "Master, when do you plan to go to the Fuli mountain range?" The burly man ordered people to light the fire, prepare water and prepare food, and then turned to ask respectfully, "If the weather is clear tomorrow, then tomorrow morning." Xiao Su took the tea from his subordinate and said indifferently. Chu Qingyan nodded. "We have already spent a few days on the road, so it's better to go early and take a look, so that we can resolve our worries." Xiao Su didn't comment. Night fell, and a simple atmosphere enveloped the entire village. Chu Qingyan had been on the road for the past 2 days and hadn't had a good bath. In the village, most of the villagers were men, so they didn't think about her bathing. Therefore, Chu Qingyan pulled on her clothes and decided to find a place to take a bath. Today, when she entered the village, she deliberately observed the terrain and knew that there was a small stream here, clean and clear. Thus, she hugged a small bundle and planned to sneak out while it was already late at night. Her qinggong was taught by Turin, but it was spurred on by flowing light. After a few years of devilish training, she had already surpassed her master, so no one noticed her sneaking away. When they arrived at the small stream, Chu Qingyan found that the stream was wider than she had seen during the day. Moreover, there were lush trees all around, so she didn't have to worry about being disturbed. Therefore, she reached out to test the water. It was a little warm. Perhaps it had absorbed the sunlight during the day and hadn't cooled down in time. She was overjoyed. She took off her mask and untied the ribbon on her head. Her fine black hair cascaded down her shoulders. Under the reflection of the moonlight, it shone with a moving luster. Not far from the village, a group of people and horses were silently approaching. Your Highness Crown Prince, there's a fire up ahead. There should be people living there. How about we go and scout? The black-clothed subordinate looked at the light up ahead, and couldn't help but report to the person beside him. Peng Huang also looked in the direction his subordinate was pointing. He narrowed his eyes and thought for a moment. Then he said, since Xiao Su arranged for people to scout for ores, there should be people stationed in a village so close to Fuli mountain range. That's why we shouldn't alert the enemy. Qingfeng, take people to find a place to rest for the night. Tomorrow morning, we'll leave for Fuli mountain range. This consort will walk around. The black-clothed subordinate, Qingfeng, immediately complied. Then he took people to find a safe place to rest. After his subordinate's footsteps gradually faded away, Peng Huang randomly found a direction and used his qinggong to travel. Ancient streams are clean and clear. It's nothing like the foul stench of modern times. People don't even dare to get close to it, Chu Qingyan muttered to herself. Then, she scooped up some water and began to wash her long hair. As she watched her long hair fall onto the water and drift with the current, she couldn't help but feel playful. She ran her fingers through the knotted ends of her hair and wrapped them around her fingertips. Fortunately, Big Ice Cube's fingers were longer than hers. She could only wrap her fingers around his hair a few times. Big Ice Cube had wrapped her fingers around his hair a dozen times, but there was still space left. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, she suddenly saw a figure appear on the water in front of her. It seemed that the figure had been standing there for quite some time. She frowned. When did her vigilance become so weak? She subconsciously pressed the soft sword at her waist. With a weapon on her, she felt a little more at ease. Then, she pretended to look up casually. She turned around to pick up her clothes, but when she saw the person behind her, she jumped in fright. Who are you? She looked like a panicked little girl. Peng Huang was originally just walking around, but when he reached the small forest in front and heard the sound of water, he followed the sound and walked over. He didn't want to find a young girl sitting by the stream, washing her hair. He planned to leave quietly, but this figure was beautiful and gentle. Her long hair was shiny, and her posture was elegant and leisurely. It was a natural elegance that was rarely seen among the women he met. His heart was stirred, and he couldn't help but slowly walk over. When he approached, the girl didn't seem to notice. She was completely immersed in playing with her long hair. And he also took this opportunity to clearly see her beautiful and delicate face. She was full of jade, with delicate plum makeup. Her mouth was dotted with cherries, her eyebrows were relaxed like willow leaves, and her hair was lightly folded with dark clouds. Her snow-white skin was blown away by the wind. Her eyebrows were lightly brushed, and her face was slightly even. She was like the moon, and her wrist was covered with frost. Even Peng Huang, who was used to seeing all kinds of beauties, had to admit that the girl in front of him wasn't the most beautiful he had ever seen. But that elegant and unrestrained posture, coupled with her beauty, was something he had never seen before. At this time, she suddenly discovered his existence. She was so frightened that she retreated and almost fell into the stream behind her. The faint moonlight poured down on her body, and the water shone on her face. It was as if she was enveloped in a circle of flowing light, making people unable to bear to look away. Peng Huang subconsciously reached out to support her, preventing her from falling into the stream. Seeing his actions, and not sensing any hostility from him, Chu Qingyan's hand on her waist paused, and she dispelled the idea of pulling out her soft sword. She was sitting, and he was standing. She could only see his tall figure when she looked up, but she couldn't see his face. Chu Qingyan felt that she was at a disadvantage, so she quietly lowered her eyes and asked in a low voice, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Peng Huang saw that she was fine, so he retracted his hand that was already in the air, and looked at her with his hands behind his back. Passing by. His voice was very pleasant to the ears, more intoxicating than the wind in the valley at dusk. But Chu Qingyan wasn't bewitched. Passing by? Could there be such a coincidence? Chapter 592. Chu Qingyan's eyes swept over his robes. They were made with high-grade workmanship and high-quality fabric. The style did not look like a Sichuan style, so it was very likely that it came from another country. Chu Qingyan slightly curled her lips at an angle he couldn't see. Without revealing his identity, he wanted to brush her off by saying he was just passing by. Did he really think he was that easy to fool? So she pretended to gently stroke her chest, looking like she was still in shock. Then she took a cloth from the side to pull up her long hair, and slowly stood up. Young master is in such a good mood. Then this little girl won't disturb you. Towards this person who suddenly appeared behind her, she did not have a good impression of him. Although he maintained a certain distance, Chu Qingyan had already classified him as a wastrel. It was not good for her to reveal her identity, so she planned to have Huiling and the others investigate why this person suddenly appeared here. Miss, wait a minute. Pang Huang saw that she was about to leave and immediately called out to her. Chu Qingyan knit her brows. Young master, is there something else? Pang Huang did not know why he called out to her, but seeing the defensive look on her face, not being as relaxed as before, he thought about it. Miss, may I ask if you are someone from the village in front? Chu Qingyan heard this and looked at him. From this angle, she could clearly see this person's appearance. His sculpted features were peerlessly handsome, and his lips were red, giving people an illusion of being flirtatious. His figure was tall and slender, and his eyes were filled with arrogance. This was a rarely seen handsome man. But his eyes were very aggressive, making her unconsciously vigilant. With luxurious clothes, an outstanding appearance, and an outstanding temperament, this kind of person was destined to not be a normal person. But why would this kind of person appear here at such a coincidence? Chu Qingyan nodded. My family lives in the village. Oh. Then miss, did you see any outsiders in the village? The young girl in front of him had a pair of clear and bright eyes. In Pang Huang's eyes, this should be a little girl who did not know anything about the world, so he wanted to use this chance to talk to her. Outsiders? What outsider? Chu Qingyan looked innocent and curious, but she was on the alert. Looking at her innocently blinking her big eyes, Pang Huang relaxed his guard against her. A rare smile appeared on his face. It's the mysterious person who suddenly appeared in your village in recent years. Chu Qingyan understood that the man wanted to find out more about the Shaolai mounts. Although it was a secret that Big Ice Cube was sent to Fuli mountain range to search for ores, it was no secret that the assassination had caused such a big commotion. In addition, some people deliberately spread the news, so it was not a secret that Big Ice Cube was sent to search for ores. However, on the surface, everyone knew that the search for ores was just a cover. The real reason was that Sichuan Emperor intended to weaken Big Ice Cube's power. However, perhaps because so many years had passed, these people were also suspicious. What exactly was supporting the Ice Cube to stay in the Fuli mountain range for so long? Therefore, those who liked a lively scene and didn't mind blowing things up probably wanted to join in as well. No, our village has been here for many years. We rarely see outsiders, but Chu Qingyan pondered. But what? Pang Huang felt comfortable talking to this young girl. At least she wasn't like the girls he had met in the past who kept staring at him with infatuation. She was conversing with him naturally. Chu Qingyan's lips curled into a smile as she looked at him with an unreadable expression. You are the first outsider I have met here. Pang Huang smiled slightly. It seems that just now this one was rude to you. This one is Long Guanghuang. Is it convenient for you to tell me your name? Yin Chu. Chu Qingyan said naturally. This was the first time Pang Huang and Chu Qingyan had met. Then, in this quiet forest, they had a strange conversation. However, neither side seemed to find it strange. But the one thing they had in common was that both of them had used fake names. Two foxes, different methods but with the same result. Miss Yan, if I have offended you, please forgive me. Pang Huang cupped his hands. Chu Qingyan smiled carelessly. There is no sea here, only a stream. Then let's call it Shihan. Pang Huang felt that this girl's words were quite interesting. Standing under the moonlight, her figure was beautiful. He was slightly dazed. When he was about to say something, Chu Qingyan spoke first. Is young Master Long alone? Pang Huang nodded without showing any emotion. I am alone. In that case, why don't you rest in our village for a night? The people in our village are very hospitable. From being timid and afraid just now to gradually opening up after a deep conversation, Chu Qingyan felt that she had played the role very well. Her acting skills had improved by leaps and bounds. And now that she had a plan in mind, she might as well invite him into the jar. Peng Huang hesitated for a moment at the girl's invitation before saying, "That's fine. Thank you for your kindness." "You're welcome." Chu Qingyan picked up the small bundle. She didn't care that her head was still wrapped in a towel, and cheerfully led him towards the village. As long as this person entered the village, wouldn't he become a turtle in a jar? The ore in the Fuli mountain range was too important to Big Ice Cube. She couldn't allow any mistakes to happen. Just now she tried to feel the other party's martial arts. But she didn't know if it was because this person didn't know martial arts or if his martial arts were unfathomable. But he hid it very well. Chu Qingyan couldn't feel it at all, so she couldn't help but raise her guard. Peng Huang looked at the cheerful figure in front of him, and his eyes unknowingly rippled with a trace of a smile. He never thought that there would be a day where he would throw away his identity and casually chat with a strange girl in a strange environment. The two of them chatted casually as they were about to leave the forest. The lights of the village had also spread in front of the two of them. As long as they took another 3 or 4 steps, she and he would be exposed to the light of the fire. Then, the fierce cavalry would discover their existence. But at this time, Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks. She didn't take another step forward, and the person behind her did the same. The night wind was mixed with a bit of coldness. As it passed through the forest, the two people's robes fluttered gracefully. It should have been a beautiful scene under the moonlight, but it was cold. Chu Qingyan lowered her head to look at the long sword on her shoulder. She couldn't help but smile. Her voice was indiscernible whether she was happy or angry. "Young Master Long, what do you mean by this?" Peng Huang, who was standing behind her, no longer had the gentle and humble expression on his face. Instead, it was replaced with a cruel and cold expression that looked like a smile that was not a smile. "The show has stopped here. It's about time." "Oh. What is young Master Long talking about? Why can't Yin Chu understand?" Chu Qingyan turned around to look at him. Seeing her slowly turn around without any fear on her face, Peng Huang had a guess in his heart. Looking at her innocent eyes, he sneered. "You are a member of the fierce cavalry?" Chapter 593. She was one of Xiao Lai's riders? Chu Qingyan felt that it was funny. Saying that Xiao Lai was one of her riders would be more accurate. Peng Huang saw that she did not panic after being exposed, and instead laughed in a strange way, and his heart was angry. There was no one who could be so indifferent under the threat of his sword. His fingers moved, and the sword in his hand moved closer to her neck. "I want your identity, otherwise you will only have one ending." "I want your identity, otherwise you will only have one ending." Chu Qingyan stopped laughing and calmly returned the words back to him. "It seems that you really won't give up until you reach the Yellow River." Peng Huang really only wanted to scare her. He disdained to make a move on a girl. But the girl in front of him not only did not have the self-awareness of being restrained, she even dared to talk back to him. Chu Qingyan tilted her head, as if his sword did not exist, and laughed naturally. "Do you believe that when I count to 10, you will be exposed? You think I will believe you? You are a person full of lies." Peng Huang's eyes revealed a trace of contempt. Even though Peng Huang said that, the sword in his hand still approached her once again. This girl was able to think of ways to lure him to the village as soon as she saw him. This proved that this girl was not a simple character. However, he could not figure out what she was thinking at this time. Was it a stalling tactic, or was she really confident? Chu Qingyan gave a faint smile. She knew that he did not believe her. "Do you want to give it a try? You count to 10. If I am not able to escape from your grasp, and you are not exposed, then I will tell you my identity." Peng Huang originally did not put the girl's provocation in his eyes, but seeing the determination in her eyes, his battle desire was aroused. 1, 2, Chu Qingyan was stunned. He had actually started counting without greeting her. All was fair in war. She looked at him calmly and then smiled as she opened her mouth to say, "All right." Long Guanghuang is not your real name. Pang Huang raised his eyebrows and looked at her. As if to ask her to guess, his mouth continued to count. 3, 4, 5, 6. Chu Qingyan didn't mind his counting and continued. In his country, there are very few people with the surname Long. The girl did not move at all, as if she was really just chatting with him. Pang Huang was very puzzled by her actions, but since she was the one who boasted, he would see how she would struggle before her death. Pang Huang's flirtatious face remained calm. 7, 8, 9. She saw the suspicion in his eyes. Her lips curled into a smile as she slowly said the most important sentence. However, I have heard of Long Guang's Pang surname. Pang Huang was stunned before he could even count to 10. Now is the time. Chu Qingyan suddenly raised her hand and pointed it at his chest. She was so fast that he could only see her sleeves fluttering in the wind. Pang Huang's vision blurred. He seemed to see something flash in her sleeve, and then it quickly flew towards him. It was too close. There was no time to dodge. Pang Huang's body immediately tensed up. He bent down and supported himself with both hands. In a split second, he felt something sharp brush past his cheek. When he got up, he turned around and saw a short arrow stuck in the tree trunk behind him. At this time, the arrow was still vibrating. He felt a burning pain on his cheek. He touched his face and his fingertips were stained with a bit of sticky blood. He rubbed the blood on his fingertips, and then turned around to look at the girl who seized the opportunity to quickly retreat when she made her move. She was standing in the light like this, hugging her shoulders. The cloth covering her face had already fallen with her movements. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and the corner of her mouth held a sly smile. She looked very much like a fox that he had hunted in the past. He was a little far away. He saw her open her mouth but no sound came out. However, he could tell what she wanted to say. You still have a long way to go. Is that so? This was the first time someone dared to shout at him. The sword in his hand felt its master's mood. It suddenly shook and let out a sword cry. Pang Huang did not think too much, and quickly slashed his sword towards her. The sword tip slashed across the ground and collided with the rocks, creating sparks. But at this time, 4 black-clothed guards suddenly fell from the sky and attacked Pang Huang from 4 directions. Pang Huang frowned. He immediately stopped his attack on Chu Qingyan, and turned to deal with the 4 people. The swords and blades clashed. Sparks flew everywhere. The commotion quickly alerted the people in the village. Then there were small footsteps breaking through the air. It was more than enough for him to deal with these 4 people, but when he heard the sound, he knew that it wasn't just 4 people. When Pang Huang finally clashed with the 4 people's swords, he borrowed the force of the collision to flip backwards. He landed on a large tree, and looked past the 4 black-clothed guards who were chasing after him. His gaze landed on the person standing under the moonlight, and he looked deeply at him. I hope you do not fall into my hands otherwise. He put away his sword and used his qinggong to jump on the tree. Then, he quickly disappeared into the darkness. The 4 Xiao Lai riders chased after him. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes as she looked in the direction that the person left. He did not want to fight. He was cautious and his martial arts were high. She could not help but think. At this time, she heard familiar footsteps behind her. She had already memorized the sound of his footsteps. What happened? She turned around and saw him walking over with a frown. She brushed her wet hair and told him the truth. When I was by the stream, I found an unknown person. He asked about our village and intentionally or unintentionally asked about the whereabouts of Xiao Lai riders. So I wanted to lure him into the village. Who knew that he was too vigilant and actually saw through my thoughts. In the end he escaped. Xiao Su looked in the direction where there was no one and frowned. Did you find anything? Yes. From the way he dressed, the way he talked, and his martial arts, his status should not be low. I don't think he is someone from the Sichuan. He said his name is Long Guanghuang. I guess his real name should be Pang Huang if we look at it according to the character Zai. Chu Qingyan lowered her brows and thought back to their conversation. She slowly analyzed it. Finally, she looked up. Big Ice Block, do you know of a person named Pang Huang or a family in another country with the surname Pang? Just as she finished speaking, she met Big Ice Block's gaze on her. It seemed a bit strange. She followed his gaze in confusion. She saw that her hair that she did not have time to dry was stuck to her shoulders. Then, water droplets rolled down and wet her clothes. The spring breeze was chilly and the spring clothes were thin. The wet clothes stuck to her skin and faintly revealed. Ah! She gave a low cry and hugged her shoulders tightly. She subconsciously turned her back. But she forgot that if the front was wet, how could the back escape the fate of being wet? What should she do? She wanted to dig a hole and escape. Chapter 594. Chu Qingyan was on the verge of breaking down. Just as she was about to explode, a coat suddenly fell from the sky and landed on her body, covering her entire body. She was stunned at first, but then she smelled a familiar fragrance. Ku quickly put it on, don't catch a cold. Xiao Su looked away and gave a few coughs. His voice was a bit unnatural as he spoke. Her face turned slightly red as she pulled the coat off her head and draped it over her shoulders. So long it was even mopping the ground. She had clearly grown a lot taller, but why did it feel like a little child wearing an adult's clothes? She clumsily pulled up the corner of the coat, and then rolled up the sleeves. She really wanted to cry, it was still so long. Chu Qingyan, who was struggling with her coat, did not hear the approaching footsteps from outside the forest. She only saw a black shadow appear in front of her. Before she could react, a pair of large hands landed on her shoulders. With a slight twist of the coat, the person wrapped it around her neck. In the blink of an eye, the coat fit her height. At this time, Hualing and the others had already arrived. Master. When they raised their heads in greeting, they saw their master's hands on the little princess body in an intimate position. They immediately lowered their heads and did not see anything. Xiao Su naturally moved his hands away. He was very satisfied in his heart. Before his subordinates arrived, he had covered the little fellow well. An unknown person has appeared and the large man has already led people to chase after him. You all should immediately search the forest and see if there are any other accomplices. Xiao Su said with a serious expression. Hualing and the others obeyed and quickly entered the forest to begin their search. Chu Qingyan watched as they left. Now there was only Big Ice Cube in her left. Awkwardness started to spread all over her body once again. The surname Pang is not common. The Southern Song country's royal family is surnamed Pang, and the Southern Song country's crown prince is called Pang Huang. Xiao Su took a step back from her. He put his hand on his lips and explained the question she asked before, trying to resolve the strange atmosphere between them. Chu Qingyan did not expect that she would be able to guess the name by accident. She completely forgot about the awkwardness and raised her head to ask. If that person was really the Southern Song country's crown prince, then what did he come here for? Could it be that he also has designs on the Fuli mountain range? Xiao Su glanced at her bright red cheeks, then moved his gaze away without leaving a trace. The Southern Blue Kingdom has been in internal strife recently. Although the position of crown prince has been confirmed, the factions of the princes are still fighting openly and secretly. Logically speaking, Pang Huang shouldn't be here unless... Unless what? Chu Qingyan asked. Unless he has discovered the secret of the rich mountain range and wants a piece of the pie, or he is just curious. Xiao Su shook his head. I don't know much about the Prince of Nansong, so I can't comment on him. But in the Southern Song country, this crown prince's evaluation is not low. He is young and talented, brave and good at fighting, and wise and resourceful. Chu Qingyan thought about the person who fought against her and couldn't help but narrow her eyes. You say it like there's another you, but I feel that the Big Ice Cube is much smarter than him. Xiao Su was very pleased with her natural praise for him. He reached out his hand to gather her clothes again and lightly said, no matter who this person is, he must have an ulterior motive for appearing here. It's best if we can catch him, but if we can't, then we have to be more vigilant and be careful. Xiao Su said so much, but Chu Qingyan did not listen to a single word. Because he was close, she once again lost the ability to think. But Xiao Su did not notice her abnormality. Instead, he bent down to pick up the cloth on the ground, shook off the grass on it, and then covered her long hair with it, helping her rub her hair in an unskilled manner. Such a big person running around with wet hair. Aren't you worried about catching a cold? His words were lecturing, but his gaze unconsciously softened. She did not think that he would personally help her dry her hair. When his fingers weaved through her hair, the long-lost helplessness and heat rose up in her body once again. She immediately took the cloth and carelessly wiped her hair, then answered his words. If there was something in the house that could be used to wash up, I wouldn't have come out. But it's because I came out that I had such an unexpected harvest, right? Her tone was deliberately relaxed, so no one could tell that she was currently overwhelmed with emotions. Xiao saw that she was wiping her hair in a disorderly manner, so he did not make a move and slowly brought her back to the village. Once they returned to the room, Chu Qingyan threw herself onto the bed. She rolled around in the blankets, her face burning. So embarrassing. So embarrassing. Once again, he had embarrassed himself to the core. After rolling around a few times, she remembered that she had not bathed yet. Her body was sticky and she wanted to roll around again. But at this time, there was a knock on the door. Chu Qingyan opened the door and saw that it was Lu Guang. Little princess, master ordered this subordinate to bring you hot water. The strong man and his subordinates are used to being on the battlefield and forgot that you are a woman. If we don't take care of you well, please don't take offense. Saying this, Lu Guang brought in a wooden bucket and hot water. Chu Qingyan shook her head. It's me who is spoiled, causing you to come in the middle of the night. Lu Guang smiled and left with his people. When she was soaking in the hot water, Chu Qingyan felt her body's tiredness dissipate quite a bit. She sighed in her heart. Big Ice Cube was really a person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She had only said it and he had ordered people to bring her hot water without saying a word. She gave a soft sigh. She really wanted to cling to him like this. In Xiao's room, Hualing and the strong man were standing there to report the situation. Master, this subordinate was incompetent and lost the person. The strong man lowered his head and blamed himself. Their fierce cavalry rarely lost people, so it had to be said that tonight was a shame. Xiao nodded. The person who came has high martial arts, so it's normal that you couldn't catch up. Hualing also followed up and reported. Subordinates have searched the entire forest and did not find any other suspicious people. Increased the patrols. It's better to kill 3,000 wrongly than to let one go. We'll enter the Fuli mountain range tomorrow. Go and deploy. Xiao waved his hand to have them leave. When he was the only one left in the room, his eyes unconsciously fell onto the candlelight. It was as if he could see through the light and see those soft and supple shoulders as well as. He immediately closed his eyes and forced himself to sweep away these distracting thoughts. On a mountain not far from the village, Peng Huang stood in the wind with an unfathomable expression. Your Highness, do you want to treat the wound on your face? Qing Feng held the ointment and looked at the person in front of him with some hesitation. It was hard for him to imagine that His Highness had just gone out for a walk and then was attacked by someone who had this kind of ability. It's not a problem, it's just a couple. They'll be gone in 2 days. Peng Huang felt a slight pain on his face, just like what that woman had said to him. His face sank. Your Highness, are we still going to the Fuli mountain range tomorrow? The plan remains the same. Yes. Chapter 595. When the first ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds and illuminated the earth, Chu Qingyan and the others were already on their way to the Fuli mountain range. The light cavalry set off on the road. Their footsteps were swift and silent, and they did not alarm anyone. The Fuli mountain range was only an hour's journey from the village, so before the sun had fully awakened, the group had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. Looking up at the endless mountain range, Chu Qingyan was a little stunned. This mountain is so high. The Fuli mountain range was not just a single mountain, it was the collective name of dozens of peaks. The peaks were intertwined and connected, but because of the terrain, there was still snow in front of them. At a glance, it was all white. The sun shined down from the top of the mountain, and Chu Qingyan felt that her eyes were sparkling, and even her breath was cold. This was the uncanny workmanship of nature. It was so beautiful that it made people feel relaxed and happy. In other places, spring flowers were already in full bloom, but this place was still a world of ice and snow. Fortunately, under the reminder of the burly man, they all brought thick clothes to keep out the cold. Master, little Gongzi, please follow this subordinate. As soon as they arrived, someone came to receive them. Facing this large snowy mountain range, Chu Qingyan was still a little confused. If she got lost here, it would not be a joke. After all, every mountain looked so similar. Fortunately, there was someone to lead the way. Xiao Su and the others abandoned their horses and walked up. The snow was very deep, and when Chu Qingyan stepped on it, her whole calf sank. She looked at the peak with cold sweat. Because of the geographical restrictions, they could only walk and did not use their qinggong. She did not know when they would reach the peak. Keep up. Xiao Su turned around and looked at Chu Qingyan, who was lagging behind, and urged her. When they were outside, as long as she pretended to be his subordinate, as long as she was by his side, he would not take care of her. In his eyes, there was no difference between a woman and a man, only the identity of a subordinate and a master. Chu Qingyan understood that as her master, he had to set an example and not show any favoritism. Thus, along the way, she had never complained or made him feel bad. However, Hualing, Turin, and the others didn't think so. Our master is too unromantic. Shouldn't he give the little princess a hand at this time? Hualing whispered in Turin's ear. Did you see the clothes the young master was wearing? It was men's clothing. Master should also pay attention to the influence. Turin meant that his master would not mix up public and private affairs because of personal reasons. But Hualing didn't understand it this way. Even if she's dressed as a man, she's still the little princess. We've already recognized the little princess as master, so what is master thinking? I guess the master is the same as you. He doesn't know. Turin shook his head and quickened his pace. Originally, master and little princess consort had been through so many things together in the past few years, so they should have already let nature take its course. But who knew that it would disappear just like that? Hualing rubbed the back of his head. It really was a hard-to-solve mystery. Chu Qingyan naturally did not know that the matter between her and Xiao Su had long become the topic of conversation for Shaolai cavalry. It was listed as an unsolved mystery, and there was no other answer. However, even if she knew, she would not be able to provide an answer. Master, our secret base is behind that snow mountain. The large man stood on a rock and pointed out. Chu Qingyan was already a bit tired at this time. She leaned against a rock to rest, and looked in the direction the large man was pointing. She saw that they still had to cross another snow mountain. This wasn't good. They had walked from morning to evening, and had already crossed 3 snow mountains. They were about to use up all their strength. Let's rest for a bit. We'll continue later. Xiao Su raised his hand and readied his troops to rest. He turned around to look for Chu Qingyan's figure in the crowd. Then, he found a red figure in a group of tall and burly subordinates and slowly walked over. The little fellow had once said that she liked red the most. Red represented passion and brilliance. So over the years, he had collected things related to red for her. Red hair accessories, red clothes. Now she was wearing a mask and a red outfit. She just stood there, looking indescribably neat and tidy. He felt that there was no one in this world more suited to red than her. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and looked at the fire clouds in the sky. Her expression was a bit satisfied. Water. A voice sounded in her ears. Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked over, and saw a man holding a water bag with one hand, and a large fire cloud behind him. It seemed like he was the only color in the world. She stared blankly for a long time. When he frowned in confusion, she came back to her senses and took the water bag in his hand. She softly said thank you, and then lowered her head to drink. Qingyan, you have something on your mind. Xiao Su looked at her side profile and suddenly said. She happened to have a mouthful of water in her throat. Hearing his words, she choked beautifully. Cough cough. Chu Qingyan coughed until tears were about to fall. Xiao Su didn't expect her to have such a big reaction. He paused for a moment, and then reached out to help her pat her back to calm her down. How old are you? Can't you drink water properly? Xiao Su felt that she was so old, but she was still careless. Isn't it because you deliberately opened your mouth to scare me when I was drinking water? After taking a breath, Chu Qingyan looked at him and complained. What do you mean by having something on my mind? Can't we have a proper chat? I've read in a book that children your age will more or less have something on their minds. I saw that you've been absent-minded recently, so I'm guessing that you're hiding something from me. Xiao turned his gaze and landed on a pile of snow not far away. He almost blurted out the parenting scripture. It was better to skip over this kind of thing. Chu Qingyan was very curious. What kind of book would write about this kind of thing? An analysis of puberty? Xiao coughed a few times. I forgot. I've read it before. Chu Qingyan looked at him suspiciously. This person was the legendary person with an eidetic memory. How could he forget something like that? That was too surprising. Big Ice Block, you're a little strange. At this moment, Chu Qingyan didn't know if it was because of the empty space or because of the casual conversation between the two, but she felt that the awkward atmosphere between the two of them seemed to have been blown away by the mountain breeze. She was also able to face him calmly and joke around. The little fellow was much more normal now. However, Xiao didn't forget the question just now and looked at her seriously. Back to the topic. Do you have something on your mind recently? Chu Qingyan felt a little uneasy when she saw how serious he was. Something on my mind? It shouldn't be considered that. But now I have a question. Oh, let's hear it. He was still a little worried that the little fellow wouldn't answer him. Now that she had spoken, he couldn't help but be interested. Chapter 596. Chu Qingyan faced the sunlight and it was a bit dazzling. She didn't know if it was because of the sunlight or because of the noble and threatening man in front of her, but there was a question in her heart right now. It was something that she had always hidden in her heart. It was something that she had never cared about before, but now it was becoming clearer and clearer. It was something that Nian Nian didn't dare to say. She didn't know if it was because the sunlight around them was too warm, or if it was because their hearts were too close. But she opened her mouth, wanting to be brave and open her mouth for him to see the problem. But bravery needed to be done in one go. But when she saw Hualing walking behind him, she gave up on that idea and her courage disappeared. She tilted her head and forced out a smile. When are we leaving? I'm about to die from exhaustion. Xiao originally thought that she would ask some serious questions, so he was waiting for her. Unfortunately, he got such a complaint. He was stunned at first, but then he smiled helplessly. Hold on for a bit longer, at most 2 hours. He spoke like he was coaxing a child, smiling as he spoke to her. When these words came out, the two of them were a bit dazed. It seemed like this scene hadn't appeared between the two of them in a long time. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips into a smile and heavily nodded. Then I'll hold on for a bit longer. If I can't hold on, you have to carry me. If you really can't take a single hit, I don't mind you losing face. Xiao raised a brow as he looked at her. Then he turned around when Hualing called out to him. Chu Qingyan bared her fangs at his back. Was there a need to laugh at her like this? Xiao happened to turn around and her face froze in midair. He chuckled. You really are a child. Chu Qingyan crossed her arms as she angrily looked at his back. She was already 15. 15. In ancient times, this age could already be considered a steamed bun. She wasn't a child. After resting for a bit, the group continued forward. After resting, Chu Qingyan had already recovered her strength. She fell behind at this time, and followed the group with light steps. She raised her head and looked at the elegant person walking in front of her. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Actually, it was no longer important whether she asked that question or not. To her, the most precious thing was the days she spent with him. Why did she have to get to the bottom of it? If that day really came, then there would be so many memories left. It was precisely because humans had been living in groundless worries and self-worries that they would always fear the future, and everything that existed in their fantasies. Regardless of whether Big Ice Cube treated her as his daughter or his younger sister, he would only treat her well. As long as it was Wei, she should not be stubborn. It was God's mercy that allowed her to meet such an outstanding person, who should have lived in a different world from her. What else could she be dissatisfied with? With that thought in mind, Chu Qingyan quickened her steps and walked beside Xiao, shoulder to shoulder with him. Cherishing the present and living in the present was the most important thing. 2 hours later, the group stopped at the foot of a snow-covered mountain. There's no path. Where's the entrance? Hualing turned to look at the brawny man, his face full of doubt. Wait a moment. The brawny man gestured to the people in the snow mountain. They nodded and then walked forward to dig up the snow in front of them. Gradually, a stone door appeared. The patterns on the stone door were very complicated, and they could faintly see a few numbers on it. One of them raised his hand and did something, and the stone door slowly opened. The mechanism set by the wood spirit cannot be activated without a password. Xiao Su explained to the surprised Chu Qingyan beside him. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan finally understood. No wonder she felt that this door looked familiar. A few years ago, she had asked the wood spirit what kind of door could not be cracked by ordinary people. She had casually described modern security doors and password-protected doors to him. She did not expect that after 4 years, she would actually see it with her own eyes and be able to design it just based on her description. She had to admit that the wood spirit was really a genius. After the door opened, the brawny man led the way in front. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan followed behind him. Hualing, Turan, and Jin Xian protected each other on the left and right. The group stepped into the corridor. The door behind them slowly closed and candlelight filled their eyes. Chu Qingyan looked at the long tunnel and recalled the time when she had been kidnapped and almost lost her life in the fire. She turned to Jin Xian, who was deep in thought, and asked, "Do you feel a sense of déjà vu?" Jin Xian nodded when he heard this. "It's still vivid in my mind." She faintly smiled and slowly walked forward. At that time, she finally understood how torturous it was to wait for someone, and how pleasantly surprised it was for that person to appear. Chu Qingyan raised her head to look at the person beside her. If it wasn't for him saving her several times, even if she carried the light of transmigration, she wouldn't have 9 lives to squander. She also wouldn't have taken in a loyal subordinate like Jin Xian. Back then, she had some reservations about him, but after being with him for 4 to 5 years, Jin Xian didn't disappoint her. Although he still couldn't remember the past, he was already able to become her left and right hand. Be careful. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Qingyan felt a hand pull her wrist up slightly. With this reminder, she didn't trip on the stairs. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. She had actually been distracted. Xiao Su let go of her hand and felt a little helpless. She could even choke on drinking water and trip on walking. Towards her, he already couldn't say anything more. Feeling the big ice cube's disdain for her, Chu Qingyan's face slightly heated up. She forced herself to abandon those distracting thoughts and walk properly. Step by step, she walked up the stairs. When she reached the last step, her vision suddenly opened up. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of hammering iron went from vague to clear. Chu Qingyan looked around. Hundreds of blacksmiths were shuttling back and forth. The furnaces were lit one by one. Everything was neat and orderly. There wasn't any chaos. She raised her head and found that this place was at least 100 feet high. Then floor by floor they went up in a circular shape. From above, she could vaguely hear the sound of hammering iron. It was just that compared to the sound below, it was more spacious and ethereal. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. This was simply a large-scale smithing factory, and a person in a blue brocade robe had been waiting respectfully for a long time. When he saw Xiao Su's group, he immediately went up to greet them. "Lu Yu greets your highness." Chu Qingyan looked at him. His skin was a bit dark and he wasn't tall, but his eyebrows were straight and he looked like a strict person. Sometimes, judging a person by their appearance was quite accurate. At this time, not long after Chu Qingyan's group entered the mountain range, a group of people quickly climbed up the snowy peak. "Master," this subordinate clearly saw over a dozen people enter the Fuli mountain range, but now there's no sign of them. Qing Feng's face was filled with doubt. Xiao Su's people are very secretive, so they won't leave any traces. But if you can't find them, it means there is a secret passage here. Split up and look for them. Pang Huang swept his eyes over the wide snowy ground and gave the order in a deep voice. Yes. The more hidden it was, the more suspicious it would be. Fuli mountain range, what kind of secret did it have? It really made people curious. Chapter 597. Mr. Liu, thank you for your hard work. Xiao Su looked at the loyal subordinate in front of him and nodded in return. This is what this one should do. Your Highness, this way please. This one will show you the new batch of weapons. Lu Yu stepped back and made way, then raised his hand in invitation. Xiao Su nodded and led the group forward. Chu Qingyan nodded inwardly. This Lu Yu was a practical person. He didn't exchange any pleasantries and went straight to business. She had to say that it was a wise decision for the Ice Cube to choose him to take on this heavy responsibility. After passing through the central hall, they went straight to another stone door. Using a similar method to open it, the group walked into a room. To be exact, it was an armory. This was the first time Chu Qingyan saw so many weapons on display. There were several times more weapons than the armory in Lian City. Your Highness, this is the weapon that this one made from the newly discovered ore. Please take a look. After Lu Yu finished speaking, he turned around and picked up a large knife, placing it flat in his hand in front of him. Xiao Su took the large knife and weighed it in his hand. It was lighter than the weapons he usually saw. Although the difference wasn't big, for soldiers who had been in combat for a long time, it was already a lot lighter. Your Highness, you can try its sharpness, Lu Yu said with a smile. Lu Yu said with a smile. The most satisfying thing about a weapon made from this, or was its weight and lethality. Xiao Su nodded and turned to wave at the people who were sizing him up. Come here. Chu Qingyan pointed at herself in confusion. After confirming that he was calling her, she walked over in confusion. What's the matter? Give me a strand of your hair. Xiao Su reached out to her. The corner of Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. If they were in another place, she would think that the person in front of her was teasing her. However, at this moment, he was speaking in a serious manner. Everyone around them was looking at them curiously, which made Chu Qingyan's scalp tighten. You have it yourself. Lu Yu had never seen Chu Qingyan before, so he didn't know who the young man wearing a silver mask was. He only felt that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of His Highness. This young man actually dared to talk back to His Highness. He didn't know whether he should admire his courage or admire his courage or admire his courage. However, Hualing, Turin, and the others were already used to this scene. In their minds, only the little princess Consort dared to contradict their master like this. It could only be her. Therefore, they were happy to see this public display of affection. Xiao Su was not angered by her words. He spoke again. Stop dawdling. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. He really did have her. However, with so many people waiting for her, she could only obediently pluck out a strand of hair and hand it to him with teary eyes. Xiao Su took it and glanced at her. There was a smile in his eyes before he started to work. Everyone's eyes landed on Xiao Su's hand. They saw him hold the large blade horizontally, and then slowly place the strand of hair he had just taken out on the blade. Even the depressed Chu Qingyan was attracted by his actions. She blinked and looked at him seriously. Her long hair landed on the blade and then a miracle happened. Her hair was cut off just like that. It was cut off. Is this the legendary divine weapon that can snap hair with a blow? Chu Qingyan exclaimed. The tense atmosphere was dispersed by her exclamation. Lu Yu said with a smile, it can't be called a divine weapon, but it can be said to be the best combat weapon our Sichuan has to date. Xiao Su also looked at the person beside him with a smile on his face. Chu Qingyan touched her head. She seemed to have been teased by the big ice cube again. How many have been forged so far? Xiao Su handed the blade to Turin, then turned to take the cloth towel from his subordinate, and asked while wiping his hands. Lu Yu immediately reported, so far only 37 large blades, 25 long swords and 50 long arrows have been forged. Too little, not enough. Xiao Su frowned slightly. This weapon could be compared to 3 or 4 weapons, but the number produced was too small. If there was only so much, it would not be of much use at all. Lu Yu explained, Your Highness, this type of ore is relatively rare. We have only found a little so far, and we have used up a lot of it for research. We can only refine this much with the remaining ore. However, we found similar ore in another mountain range yesterday. If we can confirm it, the ore we mined is enough to refine thousands of weapons. Xiao Su nodded. That's good. How much of the rest of the ore have been forged? Lu Yu answered all the questions with a very humble attitude. Chu Qingyan stood not far away and looked at the two of them. Her lips curled up slightly. For the past 2 years, Big Ice Cube had been building roads and rebuilding city walls in Lian City. He knew how to use people well and treated the people like his own children, attracting many people to join him. Also, because he did not set any requirements and did not care about family background, many talents appeared around him. Luyu was one of them. He had been blacksmithing for generations and was a famous blacksmith. After some inspection, Big Ice Cube put him at ease and placed him in the Fuli mountain range. Luyu did not let Big Ice Cube down. In the first year, he produced at least 1,000 weapons. Seeing that Big Ice Cube and Luyu still had other things to discuss, Chu Qingyan brought Jin Xian to wander around. Then, they walked up the stairs one by one until they saw a door. Where does this door lead to? Chu Qingyan asked the guard. This is an emergency passage. It can lead to the outside. The guard replied. Chu Qingyan nodded. This was the emergency passage that she had told the wood spirit before. She said to the guard, "Open the door. I'll go out and take a look." The guard nodded and turned around to press the secret button. He then opened the stone door and let Chu Qingyan out. The sun was shining brightly outside. Chu Qingyan felt the sunlight and did not want to go in again. She took Jin Xian out of the stone door and asked the guard to close the door. She was ready to walk around. Jin Xian, have you not remembered your past? At this point, Chu Qingyan was no longer asking him this question with the intention of prying. She was sincerely hoping that he could recall the past. After all, a person had lived for 15 years, and 10 years of his memories were blank. Every time he tried to recall the past, it was such a sad thing. This subordinate tried my best, but my head seemed to be blocked by something, and I was unable to recall the past. Whenever a fragment flashed by, my head would hurt, so this subordinate didn't plan on recalling it. Let nature take its course. Also, it's quite good to stay by master's side. Hearing his master ask about it after such a long time, Jinqin felt that he had let go of the past. Chu Qingyan sighed. It's good that you can think this way. Nothing can be forced. Perhaps you will remember when it's time to remember. Jin Xian nodded. The two slowly walked towards the mountain peak, intending to walk to the top to take a look. At this moment, Jin Xian suddenly lowered his body and stretched out his hand to touch the snow. He then said to the person not far in front of him with a serious expression, "Master, I found something." Chapter 598. Chu Qingyan was looking into the distance. When she heard Jin Xian calling her so seriously, she immediately walked over. "What's wrong?" she asked as soon as she walked over. "Mistress, look." Jin Xian pointed to the ground. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw 2 clear footprints. She then looked around and realized that the footprints started at the bottom of the mountain and extended diagonally to the right. When she looked at them carefully, the footprints on the snow were very obvious under the sunlight. From the looks of it, it was just recently passed by. Chu Qingyan took 2 glances and judged. Then what should we do next? Should we go back and report to His Highness? Jin Xian asked. They shouldn't have gone far. You go back and report. I'll go and track them. Chu Qingyan immediately ordered. Mistress, it's better for this subordinate to go and track them. It's safer for you to go back. Jin Xian shook his head. Chu Qingyan looked at him with a smile. Looking at their footprints, they're not my match. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid they'll go far away. Jin Xian looked at his mistress. Indeed, his mistress's skills had improved a lot in the past 2 years. Even he could barely fight her to a draw. So he nodded and signaled her to be careful. Then he quickly left. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction that Jin Xian left and stopped smiling. Then she followed the footprints and followed. She had just climbed up the snow peak when she saw 2 black figures searching around. They seemed to be looking for something. She immediately hid her tracks and followed behind them. We still haven't found the entrance. One of the black-clothed men said to his companion beside him. This place is so big. Be patient. His Highness is still waiting for us to report back. The other black-clothed man replied. The 2 of them planned to go back home. But when they turned around, They saw the silver-masked red-clothed youth standing in front of them. The two of them instantly pulled out their swords. One of them asked, "Who are you? Are you from this mountain range?" "Should I be the one asking you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? What do you plan to do?" Chu Qingyan looked at them coldly. "You talk big. Come and die first." The two of them glanced at each other and immediately flanked Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan tilted her body and dodged an attack. She reached out and grabbed one of the men's arms. Then she twisted her body and snatched the man's sword. She lifted her leg and kicked the man, sending him flying into the snow. Then she swung her sword and started fighting with the other man. The last person was subdued by her. Chu Qingyan placed the sword on his neck and pressed it down, causing him to half kneel on the ground. Chu Qingyan did not waste any time and said directly, "Don't make me repeat the question just now. You want to know who we are? Dream on." That person laughed coldly, and then black blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Chu Qingyan frowned and took poison to commit suicide. She stood up and looked at the other person, who had also committed suicide. It seemed that the clues had been cut off. At this moment, her eyes narrowed. She immediately stepped lightly on the snow and jumped away. She saw that just as she left her feet, a long arrow appeared on the ground where she was standing. When she turned in midair, she saw a man dressed in black holding a long bow and pointing it in her direction. Behind him, there were more than 10 men in black holding bows and arrows. That man kept his bow and made a gesture. The people behind him pulled their bows and arrows. Before she could stand firm, arrows flew towards her one after another. Chu Qingyan waved the sword in her hand and dodged those arrows. In less than the time it took to drink a cup of tea, her body was filled with arrows. Seeing that the other party did not seem to want to give up, Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and flew towards the archer, stepping on an arrow. Because the distance was too close, the bows and arrows could not be used. So, the men in black all pulled out their swords and slashed at Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan landed in the middle of the group of black-robed men and started fighting with them. These people did not come with good intentions. Chu Qingyan did not show mercy and killed with every move. Pang Huang was originally standing at the side to observe the youth. But as the fight became more intense, his people were injured. His face did not look good. He pulled out the sword at his waist and joined the battle. Chu Qingyan was originally more than enough to deal with these men in black, but the sudden addition of the leader of the men in black made the situation one-sided. Suddenly, the sword in her hand that she took from the men in black was broken by the man in front of her. Chu Qingyan took a few steps back and steadied herself to face the man in front of her. Pang Huang looked at her and said in a threatening tone, "This youth, if you surrender now, I can spare your life." "Spare my life? Then what?" Chu Qingyan felt that this person's voice was vaguely familiar. But the person in front of her was wearing a black brocade robe, and his face was covered with a black cloth. Only a pair of deep blue eyes could be seen. Wait, blue eyes. She suddenly remembered the person she saw by the stream. She immediately connected the two together. Sure enough, this person approached the Fuli mountain range with a purpose. "You killed 2 of my men. You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment." Pang Huang's voice fell. The archers were ready again, and the tips of the arrows were aimed at her. Chu Qingyan heard this and smiled. Her tone was full of innocence. "Your men committed suicide. It has nothing to do with me. They can only blame themselves for being too weak." Qing Feng went up to check and confirmed that it was a suicide. But to be able to force a death warrior to commit suicide, it could only be when they had to die. This person was very cunning. He spoke unhurriedly like a fox. Pang Huang couldn't help but think of the woman he had met that night by the stream. However, the person in front of him was a man, and his voice didn't sound like one. "You didn't kill Boren, but Boren died because of you. So you can't escape the responsibility." Pang Huang raised his eyebrows and looked at her. "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Chu Qingyan shrugged. At this time, she pretended to be relaxed. In fact, she had a plan. Jean Xian had been gone for a while, so he should be back soon. She just needed to stall for time. Pang Huang looked at the young man in front of him. He was obviously at a disadvantage, But he still had an air of arrogance that refused to admit defeat. Moreover, his martial arts were strong, not weaker than the bodyguards beside him. There was a hint of admiration in his eyes. Whose subordinate are you? If you don't have a sect or master, you can rely on me. Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. In just a moment, it became a recruitment. She looked at him provocatively. Benefits? Seeing her contemptuous tone, Qing Feng immediately said to His Highness, "Why waste time with her? Just take her back." Peng Huang raised his hand and stopped his subordinate's words. Although he was now the crown prince of a country, he still lacked many capable people by his side. So one of his goals in coming to Sichuan this time was to recruit talents. Moreover, the person in front of him was surprisingly to his liking. So he wanted to make this person follow him willingly. If it was not possible, then he could only use force. I guarantee that you will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. You will enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth. Peng Huang said confidently. Chu Qingyan heard this and laughed. Peng Huang's smile froze on his face. Chapter 599. What's so funny? My master is so sincere in asking you to surrender. Don't be ungrateful. Qing Feng gripped the hilt of his sword as he looked at the young but courageous youth in front of him in annoyance. Who are you? Where are you from and what abilities do you have? Chu Qingyan calmly asked. It would be best if she could figure out this person's identity. She wondered if he would come up with the name Long Guanghuang or Peng Huahuang. These questions, as long as you surrender, you will know in the future. Peng Huang's tone was a little bad as he stared at her with a burning gaze. Chu Qingyan smiled and shook her head. Looking at Peng Huang's ugly expression, she tilted her head and giggled. I can also guarantee you a lifetime of food and clothing, endless glory and wealth. Why don't you consider following me? Peng Huang was slightly taken aback. This was the first time someone had the guts to say such words to him in front of his face. Even his father, the emperor, did not dare to say such words to him, guaranteeing him a carefree life and endless wealth. He knew that she was joking. It was just that on this snowy ground, the red-clothed, black-haired, silver-masked youth was standing on top of it and saying such words with a smile, causing him to be dazed for a moment. Your courage is not small. Coming back to his senses, Peng Huang's expression became even uglier. This was a naked humiliation. No one dared to challenge his authority in front of him. What? I'm just telling the truth. With her status, it was not a problem to guarantee a person's food and clothing, glory and wealth. She casually threw him to the big ice cube, and he would become a qualified official in minutes. Then she would throw him to some corner and let him become rich. Wouldn't it be solved? Peng Huang did not want to waste any more words with her. If he was not careful, he would be discovered. It was very easy to make the person in front of him surrender. He just had to capture him and grind his spirit. He was not afraid of disobedience. Chu Qingyan also felt the other party's impatience. Estimating that it was about time, she placed her right hand on her waist, waiting for the other party to make the first move. Capture him. Peng Huang directly ordered. Chu Qingyan coldly snorted. Her right hand moved, and the silvery white software appeared in her hand. This was her real weapon. Peng Huang didn't expect her to still resist. He raised his sword and aimed it at her. Just as he was about to personally grab her, he suddenly heard the youth in front of him murmur with a hint of joy, "She's here." He looked at her in surprise, not because of her words but because of her tone. It was an indescribable feeling, as if he had seen a light in the darkness, as well as a certainty. At this moment, Qing Feng whispered into his ear in a panic, "Master, someone is coming. We're about to be surrounded." At this time, Peng Huang turned around and looked at the people behind him. There were dozens of people. So many people, but they were only discovered at this time. It seemed that their martial arts were not weak. He turned his head and looked at the young man in front of him again. "You are Xiaosu's man? Guess." Although they had already arrived, but now was not the time to let down her guard. Chu Qingyan was on guard, but her tone was still incomparably relaxed. Peng Huang estimated the distance and instantly reached out to grab Chu Qingyan's shoulder. No matter what, he wanted this person. Whether it was the heart of cherishing talent, or the fact that this person was Xiao Su's subordinate, it was all beneficial to him. Although Chu Qingyan didn't expect that he would dare to make a move on her at this time, she was already prepared. She brandished her sword to block. This person seemed to have seen through her thoughts. The sword in his hand suppressed her sword move, and his other hand was already free to grab her again. But at this time, a sharp sound pierced through the air towards the two people. Peng Huang sensed it, and could only give up the shoulder that he was about to grab. Using his qi, he retreated a few steps, and then looked in the direction of the arrow. A black figure wearing a veil hat stood on top of the snowy peak, holding a bow and arrow in his hand. His posture was cold and severe as he looked in their direction. Xiao Su? This person standing at the peak, but giving off an invisible pressure. Peng Huang combined this scene, and these two words appeared in his mind. He really was worthy of being Sichuan's war god. That arrow had brushed past the two of them. If he didn't control it well, he would have hurt his own people. If he didn't care about this silver-masked youth, then he was confident in his archery skills. Peng Huang believed that it should be the latter. But Peng Huang did not forget to poach her. You can see that your master doesn't care about your life or death. If that arrow was a bit careless, you would have already lost your life. Why follow this cold-blooded master? How about you come with me? There won't be a bit of carelessness, so you should just give up. Chu Qingyan raised her sword and blocked them from leaving. As soon as her words fell, she charged at them. Peng Huang gave a cold snort, and ordered his subordinates to not fight. He then immediately headed down the mountain. Chu Qingyan was pushed back a few steps by his sword, and in a flash, she had already put some distance between herself and Jiang Yi. It had to be said, these people's qinggong was first class. Hua Ling and the others immediately chased after her. When Chu Qingyan wanted to chase after them, she was blocked by someone. Chu Qingyan raised her head and saw that it was Big Ice Block. When she wanted to tell him about her discovery, she heard him speak in a strict voice. Leave it to Hua Ling and the others. You should take care of yourself first. His tone was rarely serious. Chu Qingyan felt a bit wronged. She was just doing her job, so why was she being scolded by him? She strangely felt uncomfortable in her heart, but she wanted to get angry at him. But he ignored her and said something to Turin. She turned her head and wanted to leave. But after taking a few steps, her wrist was grabbed. She unconsciously wanted to throw it away, but she heard his helpless voice. Why are you walking so fast? Take care of your wound first before you get angry. She was a bit stunned, but her hand was already raised by him. At this time, she found that the back of her hand had been cut at an unknown time, and it was currently bleeding. Then she saw the person in front of her, lowering his head to take care of her wound. She immediately felt a bit of regret. I'm not angry. You're not angry right now. Xiao Su first cleaned her wound and prepared to apply medicine. Chu Qingyan's face turned hot. I wasn't angry just now either. Don't move around. Xiao Su smiled. Chu Qingyan finally became obedient. Who gave you the courage to face the enemy alone? Xiao Su wrapped the gauze and then began to teach her a lesson. At this time, Chu Qingyan was already very obedient, answering all his questions. At that time, I only found 2 sets of footprints and thought there were 2 people, so... You thought. Xiao Su's tone became strict again. Do you know that guessing is a taboo in the military? Chu Qingyan admitted defeat. I know I was wrong. Don't keep lecturing me like I'm a child. Xiao Su smiled. In his eyes, she was still a child. Tell me, what did you find at the cost of your injury? Xiao Su changed the topic, so that the little fellow wouldn't say that he was always bullying her. Chapter 600. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan nodded and said, The leader is the one who ambushed me at the river. I think he came prepared for the Fuli mountain ranges ores. Xiao Su's expression turned serious. We have to finish mining the ore as soon as possible and strengthen the guards. Otherwise, we will be discovered soon. I will send more people to assist Lu Yu. Chu Qingyan agreed. This was the only thing they could do now. Everyone knew that if the secret of the ore was leaked, then the ice cube would be attacked from all sides. regardless of whether it was the West Xian emperor or the other countries, who would look at this fat piece of meat in front of them and not eat it. Big Ice would also be accused of not reporting and plotting a rebellion. At that time, the gains would not make up for the losses. In the end, it would become someone else's wedding dress. Regardless of whether these men in black found out anything, it was always better to be careful. Then what do we do next? Chu Qingyan asked. Xiao Su turned to look at the endless mountain range and slowly said, I think that if these people have done it once, there will be a second time. So we will stay here for 3 days. If those people attack again, it would be best if we can catch them all in one fell swoop. Okay. Night fell and the temperature in the mountain range was very low. Chu Qingyan brought people to patrol the mountain range. This was the first time she walked in a snowy night. The moonlight poured down on the snowy ground, refracting the light as if it was glowing. It was very beautiful, but at the same time, it was also very desolate and very frightening. This was because one could faintly hear the wolf howls resounding through the valley, as if they were counting down, one sound after another. Little young master, there are wolves in the Fuli mountain range. We have to be careful when we travel, the burly man reminded. Chu Qingyan nodded. Wolves might be solitary animals, but whenever they encountered danger, they would appear in packs. Hence, they had to be careful and avoid these ferocious animals. Master. Chu Qingyan was looking into the distance when she suddenly heard the greetings of the burly man and the others. She turned her head and saw the person walking towards her under the moonlight. Perhaps he disliked the gauze hat, which was a bit of a hindrance in the windy mountain, so he put on his mask again. It was also silver, but one size bigger than hers. Weren't you discussing the next step of the plan with Lu Yu? Why are you here? Chu Qingyan approached him and asked in confusion. Xiao Su saw her shrinking her neck and shivering. He habitually took off his cloak and draped it over her shoulders. Let's go for a walk. He wouldn't tell her that he couldn't find her after the meeting, so he came out to look for her because he was worried. He wasn't used to explaining, and he didn't feel the need to. Chu Qingyan was embarrassed. She had brought her own cloak. Why did Big Ice Cube like to put his cloak on top of hers? It was very heavy. Xiao Su didn't pay attention to her expression. He turned around and said to the burly men, You guys split up and search. Yes. So the burly men and the others all looked like they didn't see anything. Please continue, Master and little Princess Consort. And then left with light steps. Leave everything to Xiao Lieqi and the others. You don't have to be so tense. Xiao Su's gaze swept over the back of her injured hand, and then he said in a calm voice. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan paused. But if I don't do this, what can I help you share? She almost unconsciously blurted it out, but after she said it, she regretted it. She said it as if he was the center, and she didn't have her own opinions. But in the beginning, whether it was practicing martial arts, learning the art of war, or trying to figure out people's hearts, it was all because she wanted to be close to him and share all of his worries. But now, because Big Ice Cube's reputation was growing in Lian City, more and more people were coming to him. There were also more and more people with specialties. Looking back at herself, she didn't seem to be of much use anymore. As she thought about this, Chu Qingyan felt very lost. She also felt a little defeated and upset. There's no need to share. Xiao Lieqi and the others aren't freeloaders. You just have to stay by my side. That's enough. Xiao Su thought. But I'm not freeloading either. Chu Qingyan was a bit depressed. Was she really useless? She strongly denied it. Xiao Su revealed a rare smile. I know you're not freeloading. You like to eat sweet and sour dishes. Chu Qingyan's depression was blown away by his teasing. She couldn't help but roll her eyes at him in amusement. Xiao Su curled his lips and then suggested, Let's walk. She nodded. Soon they arrived at a small lake at the bottom of the mountain range. The mountain was quiet, and the wind was rustling. Chu Qingyan stepped on a withered leaf, and then another withered leaf. Her expression relaxed. She turned to look at the people behind her, and raised her eyebrows with a smile. Big Ice Cube, it seems like we haven't been so relaxed in so many years. Hearing this, Xiao Su started to reflect on himself. It seemed that ever since he went to Lian City, he had been busy with government affairs, and the time he spent with the little one could be counted on his fingers. In the past, he had promised her to be happy, safe and worry-free, but it seemed that he didn't give her such a stable life. But she never complained. You want to go to Jiangnan? Chu Qingyan's foot that was stepping on the leaf tilted, and she looked at the person behind her in surprise. How did you know? The person behind her just looked at her with his hands behind his back, and he didn't answer. But his eyes were full of smiles, and it was a kind of certainty. She touched her nose. I want to go to Jiangnan, but the main point isn't to have fun. I heard that many heroes and scholars came from there, and I want to take a look. Also, I want to do business, as a kind of experience. What do you think? She didn't say that she wanted to earn money for him to use in the future. She felt that no matter what she said, it would hurt a man's face. So she directly said that she wanted to have fun and experience. Xiao Su stopped in his tracks, and his eyes looked deeply at the young girl standing in front of him, whose height was less than his chin. She couldn't understand the complex emotions in his eyes. Finally, she heard him say, after leaving Fuli mountain range this time, we'll go to Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan thought that she was hearing things, and when she came back to her senses, she was wild with joy. Okay. Xiao Su looked at her cheerful appearance, and the snow-white light reflected into his eyes, bringing with it a dazzling brilliance. Since she wanted to do it, he would let her do it. Life was so short, and he would do his best to fulfill whatever she wanted. A man's face? What was that? Could it be eaten? Just as the two of them were talking and laughing by the lake, there was a sudden explosion, and the whole ground shook. After Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su steadied themselves, a hint of seriousness appeared on their faces. Let's go back. Xiao Su immediately said. Chu Qingyan didn't hesitate and immediately followed him. What exactly happened to cause such a big commotion? Chapter 601. The two of them gathered their internal energy, stepped on the mountain rocks, and quickly headed towards the place where the accident happened. Before they had gone far, they saw Turin and the others coming towards them. Master, someone blew up our mountain range with explosives. Turin didn't dare to stay any longer and immediately reported. The group didn't stop walking and reported as they walked. How's the damage? Xiao Su asked with a gloomy face. There was an avalanche in the first mountain range. 4 or 5 patrolling brothers happened to pass by and were trapped. I've already sent people to search for them. Those people were all his subordinates. Turin's tone was a little impatient. Xiao Su nodded. What about the other mountains? No abnormalities have been found so far. As soon as Turin finished speaking, another explosion resounded through the sky. The whole ground shook, and the mountain range in front of them was also affected. Rocks rolled down. Xiao Su and the others nimbly avoided the falling snow and rocks. Chu Qingyan's face was a little pale. Did these people come up with this plan because they couldn't find the secret of the mountain range? They wanted to blow up the mountain range. Then they would be able to pry open the cocoon and see what was inside. It was too scary. This kind of explosion was challenging nature. If they were careless, they would lose their own people. It was a test for both sides. Hearing this, Xiao Su ordered Turin in a deep voice, immediately send people to search. Find them before they continue. After blowing up 2 mountains, they wouldn't give up so easily. So he had to stop them before they did. Yes. Everyone's atmosphere suddenly became serious. Big ice block, we can't go on like this. She also wanted to lead a team to search. If they acted separately, they could increase the intensity of the search. However, Xiao Su seemed to have seen through her thoughts. When she opened her mouth, he said, "Don't go anywhere. Follow me closely." At this time, she couldn't leave his side. The 2 tremors just now had caused an avalanche. It was hard to guarantee that these people would be even crazier. When the snow mountain collapsed, she wouldn't be by his side, and he wouldn't be able to help. Chu Qingyan could only agree to Big Ice Cube's overbearingness. When the mountain range exploded for the 3rd time, Turin and the others came to report that they had found traces of the enemy. They were at the foot of the 5th mountain range not far ahead. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other and immediately rushed over. Coincidentally, when they arrived, the group of people was about to ignite the fourth bomb. I didn't expect you guys to be so fast. Pang Huang turned around and looked in the direction where Xiao Su and the others had come from, smiling ambiguously. I'm not as fast as you guys. Xiao Su stood not far from them with his men, and looked at Pang Huang's group with slight annoyance. Thank you for letting me win. Pang Huang pretended to be humble. Then he asked with obvious curiosity, His Royal Highness, I'm very curious. What is it here that makes you so nervous? Xiao Su glanced at him coldly. Fuli Mountain Range is this king's fief. It is this king's responsibility to maintain the safety of this fief. Moreover, this king has the right to arrest any evildoer who violates this fief, even if you are from another country. His Royal Highness is right. However, you still haven't explained why you are so nervous. I heard that there are ores in this mountain range. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm very curious. Can His Royal Highness enlighten me? Pang Huang asked calmly. What qualifications do you have to know? Xiao Su looked at him coldly. Pang Huang's expression changed slightly at his impoliteness. It was as if he didn't put him in his eyes at all. He also restrained the smile on his face and said meaningfully, Xiao Su, don't forget that the person who can flatten this mountain range is me. The initiative is in my hands. If you don't cooperate, then I can only say sorry. Chu Qingyan frowned. This person was simply a scoundrel. If you can't get it, then destroy it. Could it be that the Prince of Nansong usually does things like this? If the people of Southern Blue knew that you use such despicable methods to force people to submit in another country, would they admire you a bit more, or would their image be ruined? Xiao Su's tone was indifferent, but it was enough to make the other party turn pale with fright. Pang Huang's eyes were filled with astonishment. He had clearly concealed his identity well. How did Xiao Su suddenly see through him? Suddenly, he remembered the crafty woman he met by the stream that day. In other countries there are very few people with the surname Long. However, I have heard of Long Guangsheng's surname Pang. If that woman was Xiao Su's subordinate, then it was normal for his identity to be exposed. With the fierce wind cavalry's ability, it wasn't difficult to investigate a person. However, he didn't admit or deny it. He met Xiao Su's gaze and laughed eerily. Xiao Su, provocation is useless against me. Now there are explosives buried under this mountain range. If you dare to act blindly without thinking, then... Pang Huang replaced the rest of his words with a cold smile. But it was full of threats. When Pang Huang finished speaking, Chu Qingyan subconsciously looked at the person beside her. From what she knew, the ice cube wasn't a person who could withstand threats. Pang Huang was simply plucking the hair from a tiger's head. However, the ice cube's reaction surprised Chu Qingyan. She only heard him say indifferently, Your Highness Prince of Nansong, since you like this prince's mountain range so much, this prince is not a stingy person. If you want to play, then play. Otherwise, you will say that this prince didn't do his duty as a host. However, you have to be careful. Don't blow yourself up. Otherwise, you will lose more than you gain. Pang Huang originally thought that he would be angered, but he didn't expect him to say those words so calmly. It was as if he was looking at a clown. This made him feel angry. However, he quickly calmed down and looked at him with a cold gaze. His Royal Highness, are you trying to loosen the reins only to grasp them better? Don't treat me as a brat who just came out. Xiao Su chuckled. It's up to you to believe it or not. Pang Huang fell silent, because of his words. The two sides faced each other like this. Chu Qingyan knew that the ice cube was playing a psychological game with him. Before the ice cube took over the Fuli mountain range, it was just a few abandoned mountains. The talk about the ore was just a trick the Sichuan emperor wanted to trick him into coming here. Although the countries seemed peaceful on the surface, who didn't know that the Sichuan emperor was planning this? There were two reasons why Pang Huang chose to blow up the mountain. First, he wasn't sure what was inside the mountain range, so he wanted to see if he could expose what was inside by blowing it up. Second, he wanted to see if Xiao Su and the others would give themselves away when they blew up the mountain. This would help them find the secret of the Fuli mountain range. But right now, everything seemed to be out of his expectations. Xiao Su calmly allowed him to continue blowing up the mountain range. This made Peng Huang, who had made a solemn vow, unsure if he should continue blowing up the mountain range. Chu Qingyan watched the two sides in a deadlock, waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Chapter 602. Only a few moments had passed, but the people present felt as if a day had passed. Beneath Peng Huang's feet were a series of explosives. As long as they were ignited, the fourth mountain range would explode, causing a chain reaction that would affect the nearby mountains. Although they were under the control of others, Xiao Su and the others did not show any fear. Qing Feng whispered in his ear, "Your Highness, what should we do? The mountains in front of us have exploded, but we did not find any traces." Peng Huang raised his hand, indicating that he should not shut up. In fact, they didn't bring a lot of explosives. The reason why there was such a loud explosion in the first few mountains was because the mountain they chose was relatively low. Now he asked people to gather all the explosives here just to test Xiao Su's reaction, but the result was disappointing. "Xiao Su." Peng Huang suddenly opened his mouth. Xiao Su only looked at him coldly. "I heard that you once challenged several generals of the enemy camp. Today, I want to see if you are really as powerful as the rumors say, or if you don't live up to your reputation. If you win, then I will retreat. If you lose, then you will hand over the secret of the Fuli mountain range." Peng Huang stared at him, word by word, not letting any of his actions go. "There are no secrets in the Fuli mountain range. I feel that Prince of Nansong, no matter if you win or lose, you will suffer a loss. Your Highness Prince of Nansong's intelligence is worrying." Chu Qingyan interrupted, shaking her head, expressing that she was speechless. Peng Huang snorted at Chu Qingyan's words. "Don't think that I will believe you." With that, Peng Huang unsheathed his sword. As soon as the sound of the sword rang out, he charged towards Xiao Su. Xiao Su's sword trembled as he met Peng Huang's attack. The two swords clashed in mid-air, and everyone felt a strong current of air forcing them to retreat. Sure enough, when the strong met the strong, the momentum was unstoppable. A hint of interest appeared in Xiao Su's eyes. It had been a long time since he had met an opponent of equal ability. After the confrontation, he did not restrain his inner force and directly released it, intending to fight to his heart's content. Peng Huang only used 70% of his strength, and found that his fingers could no longer hold the hilt of his sword. At this time, he immediately put away the thought of underestimating the enemy, and went all out. As experts exchanged blows, Chu Qingyan felt that she could no longer see their moves clearly. She decided to give up and stared at Peng Huang's subordinates. At this time, there were two people holding torches and pointing them at the explosives on the ground. As long as there was something wrong, their torches would fall, and the explosives would be ignited. At that time, there would definitely be an avalanche or a collapse. No matter what the result was, it was not something they wanted to see, because this mountain range had not started mining yet. If it was shaken open, as long as someone studied it carefully, it would not be difficult to find the ores inside. Hence Chu Qingyan gave Turin a look. With years of tacit understanding, Turin immediately understood. While everyone was focused on the fight, the two of them quietly approached each other. When the time was right, the earth spirit turned around and pounced on one of them. It grabbed the hand of one of them, then quickly snatched the torch and threw it far away. As for Chu Qingyan, she kicked the gravel on the ground and hit the wrist of another person who was about to make a move. A second gravel followed and hit the torch, causing it to fly far away. In a blink of an eye, the opponent's torches were all gone. Peng Huang glanced behind him and his expression turned ugly. "Xiao Su, your people did not follow the rules of the competition. When did this king accept your challenge? All is fair in war. Has your highness not learned this before?" Xiao Su stabbed back at him, but the sword in his hand did not stop moving. Despicable. Peng Huang realized that he had been too careless. This person could not be judged with common sense, and his moves were also very fierce. Just as Chu Qingyan and the others made their moves, Qing Feng and the others also started to fight back angrily. Kuo Ling and the others protected in front of Chu Qingyan, resisting the black-clothed people. As for Chu Qingyan, she quickly destroyed the explosives to prevent any future problems. At this time, The sound of footsteps could be heard. Huo Ling had already brought people to surround everyone. "Master, we are surrounded." Qing Feng, who was fighting, called out in a low voice. Pang Huang was distracted and Xiao Su's palm hit his life gate, hitting his chest. Pang Huang could not take it and his entire body flew out, slamming into the snow. He spat out a mouthful of blood that dyed the snow in front of him red. "Master!" Qing Feng rushed forward with a panicked expression and supported his master. The other black-clothed people all stopped fighting and surrounded Pang Huang, vigilantly looking at the fierce cavalry around them. Xiao Su put away his sword and slowly walked towards Pang Huang with Turan and the others, standing a certain distance away from Pang Huang. "Prince of Nansong, you've lost," Xiao Su softly said. There was no joy from winning, like he was just informing him. Pang Huang's heart was heavily injured, but hearing Xiao Su's words, he revealed a smile. He had indeed lost. Whether it was strategy, heart, or martial arts, he was inferior to him. However, he had underestimated his opponent today, otherwise he would not have been in such a passive state. "Xiao Su, from our exchange, you are a qualified opponent. I was too careless." Pang Huang slowly stood up. Because he had lost too much blood, his face was a bit pale. Xiao Su did not comment. Pang Huang's eyes swept over Chu Qingyan beside Xiao Su and a strange light flashed in his eyes. "What a pity. I hope we will meet again." As soon as Pang Huang said this, Chu Qingyan immediately reacted. She was about to give the order to capture them, but the other side was faster than her. 3 smoke bombs exploded on the ground and white smoke billowed. At this time they were at the entrance of the wind, so the white smoke quickly filled the air. When everyone dispersed the white smoke, Pang Huang and the others had already disappeared. There was only a trace of blood left on the ground. "Master, should we chase?" Huo Ling asked. Xiao Su raised his hand. "No need. If the Prince of Nansong dies in Sichuan, it will definitely cause a dispute between the two countries. Then are we going to let him do as he pleases?" After seriously injuring 4 of his subordinates, Turan's mood was a bit heavy. "Of course we won't let him off so easily. The news of the Prince of Nansong's injury has been leaked to the other princes of Southern Song. What happens next will have nothing to do with us." Xiao Su glanced at the destroyed explosives on the ground, and his eyes flashed with a trace of light. "Injuring his people and wanting to return safely? It won't be that easy." "Yes." Turan immediately accepted the order. The internal strife of Southern Song was no secret. Therefore, on this journey, the Prince of Nansong would be out of luck. Whether or not he could return alive was still unknown. Chu Qingyan nodded. The smartest thing in the world was to borrow a knife to kill someone, and not get stained with blood. However, at this time, a fuse suddenly ignited in a hidden place. After leaving Fuli mountain range, Pang Huang looked back with a malicious gaze. The scarlet color at the corner of his mouth made him look like a demon. "Xiao Su, don't you know that I like to be a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows the most? I wish you good luck." Chapter 603. After Turan and the others left first, the snow suddenly became empty. The rest of the people cleaned up the battlefield. Xiao Su glanced around, and was ready to leave with Chu Qingyan. As soon as he took a step, Xiao Su frowned. "What's that sound?" Chu Qingyan hadn't recovered from the surprise of defeating the enemy just now. When she heard the big ice cube's suddenly vigilant tone, she immediately entered the state of preparing for battle. She held her breath and listened carefully. She listened for a while and didn't hear anything special. When she was about to ask him if he had misheard, suddenly a hissing sound came along with the wind. Chu Qingyan's face turned pale. There are explosives. Hide." Xiao Su reached out to grab her hand, but the little fellow was a few steps behind him. As soon as he finished speaking, the fuse was lit. Bang, bang, bang. There were explosions one after another. The whole ground was shaking. Xiao Su didn't have time to grab her hand. The two were separated because of the sudden rolling stones from the top of the mountain. The stones seemed to have been separated from the mountain and rolled down. Some were as small as sand, and some were as big as rolling balls. They rolled down the mountain at a fast speed. "There's an avalanche. Leave quickly," Xiao Su roared. Chu Qingyan also understood that the power of the explosives this time was more powerful than the previous ones. Peng Huang put the explosives at the bottom of the mountain just to lure the enemy. He still had a trick up his sleeve. He wanted to kill them. How hateful. But now was not the time to pursue the matter. She dodged again and again at the foot of the mountain. She could dodge the water tank-sized stones, but she couldn't dodge them. She wanted to move forward, but she was blocked again and again. She had to retreat again and again. The stones were like drizzling rain. They were also very lethal. Although her clothes were thick, they still hurt her. Be careful. She suddenly heard the big ice cube shout. Following his line of sight, she saw a big stone falling from the sky. She was shocked. She aimed at a direction and was ready to escape. Gotcha! A rock the size of a fist hit her ankle, and the pain spread through her body like electricity. She couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. She was in so much pain that she had no strength left in her body. Even if she crawled, she wouldn't be able to avoid the falling rocks. Could it be that she could escape from the poisoning, ambushes, and assassinations, but she could not escape from the power of nature? The negative thoughts only flashed through her mind for a moment. She gritted her teeth and refused to give up. It was not that easy to make her admit defeat. Just as she was about to move with all her might, the boulder above her head was already right in front of her eyes. Suddenly, a figure flew over, picked her up, and rolled to the side. The two of them hugged each other and rolled far away. The place where they were just now had a big hole smashed by the mountain rocks. Chu Qingyan stared at the huge hole, still in shock. She couldn't imagine what would have happened if she had been the one lying in the hole just now. She came back to her senses and found that the person hugging her was the big ice cube. Because they were rolling on the ground without caring about their image, their clothes and hair were tangled together. Their breaths were close to each other, so close that if she raised her head, she would be able to touch his face. Her cheeks immediately flushed red again. We have to leave this place immediately. Xiao did not seem to notice their ambiguous position. He looked around and was ready to pull her up. But when he lowered his head, his eyes met with her slightly evasive gaze. Her red lips were so close to him, and her small ears were so red that it could drip blood. He suddenly felt a little dazed. Chu Qingyan, who did not dare to look at him directly, looked behind him. Then she was startled. When she saw the vast expanse of white above them, she immediately exclaimed, "Big ice cube snow." Xiao was pulled back to his senses by her exclamation. He raised his head and saw the rumbling sound of the sea of snow rolling down. It was like the waves of the sea, surging and surging. There were also countless water tank-sized boulders mixed in with it, bringing with it a fierce aura. "Let's go." Xiao made a prompt decision. He carried the injured person with one hand, and used the other to slash the obstacles with his sword. But no matter how fast they were, they could not compare to the speed of nature. Chu Qingyan only felt her vision turn black, and she did not know anything else. The last thing she remembered was the big ice cube's cold lower jaw and tightly pursed thin lips. When she woke up again, her mind was in a mess and she felt sore all over. When she saw her surroundings clearly, she was in a cave with a fire beside her. It was already nighttime. The clothes on her body were the big ice cube's outer clothes. Her ankle hurt, but it had already been bandaged and tied with the big ice cube's clothes. Her anxious heart immediately relaxed. It seemed like the big ice cube was with her. Then she was relieved. "Big ice cube." She tried to call out to him. "Rustle, rustle, rustle." It was a familiar set of footsteps, but it sounded much heavier than before. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. The big ice cube should have suffered heavy injuries. But the people who walked into the cave, other than their pale faces, seemed to have no problems moving. The two of them were not wearing masks. They must have dropped them when they were escaping. "How do you feel?" Xiao looked at the person who had already woken up and asked softly. "I'm fine." She shook her head and asked back. "What about you? Are you hurt?" The little fellow's undisguised concern made his lips curve. "I'm fine too." He knew best whether she was fine or not. He had already checked her just now. They were all superficial wounds. Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. She remembered that before she fainted, there seemed to be a big rock flying towards the two of them. "Big ice cube, How did we escape? Xiao Su sat down beside her and added some dry twigs into the fire. He said casually, "We were buried under the snow. Maybe it was because we were lucky that we weren't buried too deeply. When I woke up, it was already dark. I dug you out and found a cave to settle you down. I've already sent out a signal, so Hualing and the others will come to find us." Chu Qingyan nodded. Suddenly, she smelled blood in the air and immediately turned to look at him. "There's the smell of blood. Big Ice Cube, are you hurt?" Xiao Su casually pointed at a dark corner not far away. "We took its nest and killed it while we were at it." Chu Qingyan followed his line of sight and saw a dead black bear lying there. Her mouth twitched. If it wasn't for the darkness in the cave, she wouldn't have missed such a huge creature. But she had to admit that the Big Ice Cube was really too powerful. He saved her and even killed a bear. Chu Qingyan was about to turn to talk to him when she felt a weight on her shoulder. She was stunned for a moment before she heard him say, "I'm tired. Let me lean on you for a while." Chu Qingyan didn't dare to move after he said that. The person leaning against her back wrapped his arms around her and pressed his entire weight on her. Chapter 604. Chu Qingyan felt like there was a small mountain pressing down on her shoulders. But she did not dare move and allowed him to hold her in his embrace. Perhaps it was because of her stiffness that Xiao Su found it funny. He was already very tired at this time as he muttered, "Relax, I won't eat you." Xiao Su did not know that his words made the person in his embrace even more tense. But he had already fallen asleep and his breathing had become long. This was the first time the two of them had hugged each other like this. Chu Qingyan felt her cheeks become slightly hot, but she did not hear him speak again. She couldn't help turning her head and looking at his closed eyes. His long and curly black eyelashes were like feathers that tickled her heart. She calmed her chaotic emotions and saw the exhaustion on the person's face as he rested his chin on her shoulder. Her heart couldn't help feeling pain. Today at the foot of the mountain, he had thrown himself at her without a care for himself. At that time, she thought that he would die like this. He had saved her from danger, saved her from the avalanche, bandaged her wounds, and spared no effort in taking care of her. Her heart slowly began to warm up. Big Ice Cube. She seemed to be talking to herself, and did not expect a reply from the person who was asleep. "Thank you for taking care of me for all these years. Even if it's a little sister, it's already very good." She blinked and tears began to appear in her eyes like a rising tide. After her emotions calmed down, she planned on taking off the cloak on her body to cover him, but he tightly held on to her, as if he was afraid that she would leave. No matter how hard she tried, she could not move at all. In the end she gave up. The only way was to move closer to him and transfer her body's warmth to him. At this time, the two young bodies were hugging each other without any charm. They just wanted the other to safely pass through this cold night. The fire was burning, and she would add branches from time to time to ensure that it would not go out. In this snow mountain, if there was no fire to warm them up, they would quickly freeze to death in this cave. She forced herself to hold on for the entire night until the first rays of the morning sun appeared. Only then did she fall into a deep sleep. When Hualing and the others arrived, they saw this scene. The two outstanding men and women were leaning against each other. Although they were in a sorry state and the environment was bad, the scene was so beautiful that no one wanted to disturb them. Xiao Su slowly opened his eyes and saw several of his subordinates standing at the entrance of the cave. He nodded slightly, and then looked at the person sleeping soundly in his arms. Only then did his tense expression relax a lot. He stood up and was about to carry her on his back, but after a moment of hesitation, he decided to carry her instead. When their master walked out of the cave, Hualing and the others bent over, planning on reporting what happened last night, but they were surprised to find that their master's back was stained with blood. It seemed like it had already dried up. "Master, are you injured? Why don't you hand the young master over to me?" Hualing's face was filled with worry. It seemed like his master's injuries were quite serious, and he was holding the little princess right now. The wounds that had not been treated would definitely open up again. "It's nothing serious. Let's first report on last night's injuries." Xiao Su's expression was calm as he walked steadily with the person in his arms. Seeing that his master had made up his mind, Hualing did not say anything else and directly reported what happened last night. Chu Qingyan felt that every time she woke up, she would be in a different place. This time, it was the mountain wall again. However, the decorations inside were for normal people. She was lying on a bed, and a soft blanket covered her body. They were saved. Chu Qingyan let go of the blanket, and her feet touched the ground. She prepared to go out and take a look. Although her ankle still hurt a bit, she had applied medicine and could barely walk. As soon as she went out, she heard the sound of iron being hammered. Although it was a bit far, she could still hear it clearly. It seemed like they had returned to their headquarters. At this time, she saw Hualing holding a plate. Her face filled with joy as she called out to him. Seeing the little princess, Hualing also revealed a smile. "Little young master, it seems like your complexion is quite good." "I'm lucky," she smiled. Then she pointed at the plate in his hand and asked, "What are you holding?" "This is medicine for injuries." This subordinate was preparing to send it to master. Hualing honestly replied, "His Highness is injured?" Chu Qingyan was stunned. Wasn't he still fine last night? Hualing looked at her appearance and clearly didn't know. With a bit of thought, he knew that his master didn't want the little princess to worry. He rolled his eyes and said with a sigh, "That's right, it's quite serious, but every time master is injured, he doesn't make a sound. It really is worrying." After saying this, he looked at the person in front of him and sure enough, he was scared stiff. He secretly laughed in his heart, and then slapped the back of his head, saying in surprise, "Little young master, this subordinate suddenly remembered that I need to take inventory of the weapons we lost this time. How about you help this subordinate bring this medicine to master?" Chu Qingyan lowered her head and her hands were stuffed into the plate. She originally wanted to see the big ice cube, and now she had a good reason, so she quickly walked towards his room. Their rooms were right next to each other, so Chu Qingyan quickly knocked on the door and went in. Xiao Su's back was currently facing her. When he heard the sound of footsteps, he did not even look up as he asked, "Where's the medicine?" When his voice fell, there was no response. He looked up in confusion, and the first thing he saw was a pair of worried eyes. "Why are you here?" He unconsciously looked at her ankle. "My small injury isn't enough to keep me in bed. But you, where are you hurt?" He even told her last night that he was fine. He really knew how to lie. "It's just a small injury." Xiao Su did not plan on letting her know. "I don't believe you." Hualing had just said that his injury was quite serious. Other people's injuries were quite serious, but it was different from the big ice cubes, so it had to be very serious. Chu Qingyan walked close to him and put down the plate. Without thinking, she reached out to take off his clothes. Xiao Su reacted quickly and reached out to grab her wrist. He looked at her with a strange expression. "What are you doing?" "I'm helping you check your injury." "How can I check if I don't take off your clothes?" Chu Qingyan was more worried than shy. How could she still remember that men and women should not touch each other when giving or receiving things? Xiao Su was slightly stunned by her words. Although it was common to expose one's chest and stomach in the army, the person in front of him was not his subordinate, but the little fellow. Even the usually calm Xiao Su's expression became unnatural because of her words. "Put down the medicine. I'll apply it myself." He let go of her hand and coughed a few times before speaking. "No, when you were injured in the past, I always helped you apply medicine. This time is no exception." Chu Qingyan took one of the bottles of medicine, and her face revealed a rare serious expression. Xiao Su saw that he could not change her mind and finally gave in. "Are you sure you want to take a look?" Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. "You're a real man. Stop dilly-dallying." This was the first time someone said he was dilly-dallying. Xiao Su shook his head and reached out to unbuckle his belt. Chapter 605. When the person in front of her took off his belt, and took off his clothes in front of her, Chu Qingyan's face flushed red. However, when he turned around and revealed his back, the redness on her face faded, and was replaced by a deathly pale complexion. This. The originally smooth and strong back was now a mess of flesh and blood. There were dozens of scratches on it. Some had already turned pus and some had already dried up. It looked very terrifying. But after Chu Qingyan's shock, her heart was filled with pain. When he was taking off his clothes, she seemed to have heard the sound of his clothes being peeled off, but Big Ice Cube did not even bat an eyelid. Xiao Su did not hear the sound behind him and knew that she was frightened. It's fine. It looks serious, but it's actually just a flesh wound. Xiao Su comforted her with a smile. Chu Qingyan silently went forward and did not say anything. Her hands trembled as she helped him clean his wounds. She first used a needle to pry open the pus, and then cleaned the blood stains. Finally, she applied an anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving ointment. Although Big Ice Cube did not cry out in pain, Chu Qingyan could clearly feel that when she touched the deep wounds, his shoulders trembled. It must be very painful. She didn't say a word as she once again sprinkled the wound ointment. By the time she was done, it was already 2 hours later. She took the gauze and helped him wrap it around the wound. Finally, she tied a knot around his shoulder. Only then was she done. Xiao Su could clearly feel that something was wrong with her mood, but her head was lowered, and the strands of hair on her forehead fell to cover her eyes. She was also focused on treating his wound, so he didn't ask her about it. In the end, when she stood in front of him, Xiao Su slightly lowered his brows as he tried to find a topic to talk about. He wanted to break the deadlock between the two of them, but the person in front of him pounced on him without any warning. Chu Qingyan wrapped her hands around his neck and avoided the wounds on his shoulders. She buried her entire body into his chest, and the tears that she had been holding back finally fell drop by drop. Before Xiao Su could react from her actions, he felt his chest become wet. Qingyan, it's fine. It doesn't hurt. He knew that she was sad and felt the same way for her. But my heart hurts. She laid on his chest as she silently cried. When she was applying the ointment for him, she remembered that when the avalanche fell, he had blocked the large boulder that fell towards her. She clearly remembered that the boulder's edges had shined under the sunlight. When she fainted, she heard his uncontrollable groan. That must have been very painful. Moreover, the injuries on his back were not only scratches from rocks, but also sharp scratches. She couldn't help but recall that at that time, he had been fighting with a majestic black bear. Without her knowledge, he had been injured again. Her heart was filled with heart-wrenching pain. However, he didn't know how to express his feelings. He could only use the most instinctive hug to express his feelings. Silly girl, it will be fine after a while. What kind of injuries have I not suffered before? A man's body is not so precious. His emotions were affected by her. He raised his hands that were hanging by his sides and hugged her. He used one hand to pat her back and sighed slightly. In the past, it was because I did not experience your life, so I did not know. But now, I am also in your life. I will not allow you to get hurt again. Chu Qingyan choked with tears and said with a choked voice. Xiao Su replied seriously. Okay, I will obey you, my silly girl. Hearing his reply, Chu Qingyan wanted to laugh for a moment, but her emotions were quickly covered by sadness. Big Ice Cube, if there is any danger in the future, don't worry about me. Run away first. Chu Qingyan was still hugging him with her eyes closed as she said this. If it was not because he had to save her this time, with the Big Ice Cube's skills, he would not have been injured. But just as she finished speaking, she felt the person in front of her tighten his arms, almost making her unable to breathe. A cold voice fell by her ear. In my Xiao Su's life, there is no such thing as running away. Chu Qingyan wrinkled her nose. How domineering. But it was also because of his words that she forgot that her original intention was to let him protect himself at the crucial moment. All right, are you sure you want to push the blame onto me? Although I'm a man, it's still inappropriate to be topless. After she calmed down a lot, he patted her shoulder and asked with a light smile. When he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan then realized that she had hugged his naked upper body and cried her heart out. She could vaguely see her masterpiece on it. No, the important thing was. Chu Qingyan immediately stood up and covered her eyes as she turned her back to him. Hurry and put on your clothes. Xiao Su looked at her stomping her feet, and the corner of his mouth could not help but hold a relaxed smile. After staying in the Fuli mountain range for a few more days and confirming that Pang Huang and the others would not come again, Xiao Su finally left with Hualing and the others. Chu Qingyan's foot injury was almost healed, but she still had trouble walking. But when she went down the mountain, she was still carried down by the big ice cube. No matter how much she resisted, it was useless. Big ice cube, the injury on your back hasn't healed yet. Put me down, I can walk by myself. Chu Qingyan emphasized again. Xiao Su felt that she had been too noisy the entire way, so he directly put her down. Chu Qingyan let out a sigh of relief when she landed. She wanted to walk, but who knew that the snow would be too deep? Adding on the fact that her foot was injured, she fell down. Before she even took a step, she fell down like a dog eating blood. This was simply too embarrassing. Xiao Su did not let her be embarrassed for too long as he directly picked her up and carried her forward. Only by letting her fall would she stop. Xiao Su curled his lips and tightened his arms. He lifted her up a bit and continued to walk forward. The road down the mountain was still long, so Chu Qingyan simply closed her eyes. This was because as soon as she opened her eyes, she would see Hualing and the others smiling at her. She might as well pretend to be dead. The carriage was already waiting at the foot of the mountain. Everyone boarded the carriage and headed south with a wave of their whips. If you asked why they were heading south and not back to Lian City, Hualing and the others would definitely answer. Like this. Private matters were because their master was enlightened and planned to take the little princess to sightsee. If it was official matters, it was to recruit talents. Compared to Chu Qingyan and the others who were relaxed, other than Pang Huang at the Sichuan border, he was having a hard time. Master, we just took care of another wave of assassins. We lost 10 elites and 17 horses. Qingfeng also had quite a few wounds on his body. When he reported, he did not dare look at the angry highness in front of him. Good, very good. Xiao Su, this consort and you are irreconcilable. Pang Huang looked in the direction of the Sichuan border, with eyes as cold as ice. Chapter 606. The journey was quite smooth. After traveling for 2 days, they stopped at Fu City. I heard that the magistrate of Fu City is praised by the people and is diligent. The last time they passed by Fu City, they only stopped temporarily and didn't investigate further. This time, Flowing Light was ordered by its master to secretly investigate the officials of Fu City. Xiao Su nodded. He rarely heard positive comments about officials in his fief, so he said, inform the magistrate of Fu City of Ben Wang's whereabouts. Yes. Flowing Light went to do it. In the room, Chu Qingyan said thoughtfully, isn't the magistrate of Fu City the Yang family that traveled with us last time? That's right. Big Ice Cube, are you going to denounce them or observe the people's situation this time? Recently, being suppressed by him, Chu Qingyan always had the urge to turn the tables, so she used the incident with Yang Yuhuan to tease him. Xiao Su glanced at her, and the kitten's claws popped out. Does Ben Wang look like the kind of person who uses public office for private gain? Chu Qingyan coughed softly. The words, using public office for private gain, didn't seem to match Big Ice Cube. Apply medicine. Xiao Su felt that sometimes, he had to control the rhythm when teasing a cat. It wouldn't be good if it slipped away, so he decided to let her go. Oh. Chu Qingyan obediently raised her hand and obediently helped him take off his clothes. Ever since she helped him apply medicine in the mountains, Big Ice Cube became lazier and lazier. He even needed her to take off his clothes for him. It had to be said that Big Ice Cube's figure was really perfect. Even if she only saw his upper body, she couldn't help but cover her nose for fear of bleeding. However, after seeing Big Ice Cube facing her back, she didn't dare to let her imagination run wild. Because the injury this time was really serious. Just looking at the scar was scary. Big Ice Cube, the wound has basically scabbed. When we return to Lian City, I'll ask Ethereal to make you some scar-removing ointment. She poked her head out from behind him and suggested. No need. He wasn't a little girl, so he didn't care much about his looks. But you'll look better after removing the scars. You still have a lot of scars from before. If you remove them all, it'll be even better. she mumbled as she applied the medicine. Xiao raised his eyebrows. Scars are medals on the battlefield. This was true. Chu Qingyan had always heard from her father that getting injured on the battlefield was an honor for special forces soldiers like them. However, most of the scars on your back were from saving me, not medals. She argued. Although I'm not, I can always remind you that I got hurt because of you. At this time, Chu Qingyan's expression was stunned. However, the person in front of her had his back facing her. She didn't know what his expression was at this moment, and what kind of mentality he had when he said this to her. The little girl finally quieted down. Xiao rubbed his aching forehead. Last night, she kicked the blanket in the carriage all night, causing him to be unable to sleep. He only cared about covering her with the blanket. She only stopped when he confined her in his arms. In these few years, he noticed that her sleeping posture was getting worse. Chu Qingyan silently applied the ointment for him, and didn't mention the scar removal again. This was because she knew that the big ice cube was very cold when he didn't speak, but when he spoke, he often made people speechless. However, the fact that he got hurt for her sounded very heartwarming. She smiled like a cat that had just had a good night's sleep. The moment Yang Qing received the news that His Royal Highness had arrived, he rushed over without stopping. This humble official, Yang Qing, the prefectural magistrate of Fuqing City, pays his respects to His Royal Highness. Yang Qing was wearing an official's uniform. He was about 40 years old with white hair and a big belly. When he bowed to Xiao, he was very nervous and his forehead was sweating. He heard that His Royal Highness was cold and ruthless, and that he had power over people's lives and was not easy to get along with. When he heard that he had arrived in Fuqing City, he first lamented and then wailed. Then he urged the carriage driver to hurry to the inn, hoping that he wouldn't be accused of negligence. Lord Yang, please rise. Xiao looked at Yang Qing indifferently and raised his hand slightly. Thank you, Your Highness. After Yang Qing got up, he dared to raise his head and look at the famous genius war god. He wore a symbolic mask on his face and sat upright on the chair, exuding a cold aura. Yang Qing lowered his head again. Does Your Highness have any guidance for suddenly coming to Fuqing City? It's not guidance. I just came down to see if you are really doing something for the people. Xiao said lightly. Yes. Your Highness is always thinking for the people. It's our blessing. Yang Qing wiped the sweat on his forehead and said with a smile. Lord Yang, you look very hot? Xiao asked suddenly. Chu Qingyan, who was standing at the side, saw the conversation between the two and felt like a big bad wolf teasing a little white rabbit. However, this Yang Qing shouldn't be a little white rabbit, but a giant rat. This humble official's body is full of fat and afraid of heat. Yang Qing replied with a trembling voice. Xiao knew his reputation among the people and officials. After he was done scaring, he said directly, This prince is not used to the accommodation in the inn. Lord Yang, you wouldn't mind arranging a place for this prince to stay, right? How was this a discussion? It was simply a notification. Chu Qingyan felt that the big ice cube wasn't really cold. It was just that he was interested in things and not people. Sometimes, when he was in the mood, he could definitely tease you until you were at a loss. When he wasn't in the mood, you could only stay in the corner and draw circles. This subordinate wouldn't mind. It's simply an honor. If Your Highness doesn't mind this Fu's simple and crude. This inn was already the best place in the Fu city. If His Highness wasn't even used to living here, then he could only go to his own Fu. Without waiting for Yang Qing to finish speaking, Xiao had already stood up. Let's go now. Yang Qing was speechless. This official obeys. It's over. This was too sudden. He hadn't tidied up the Fu yet. His Highness came in a hurry and acted swiftly. He didn't know if his old bones could withstand the devastation. From meeting Yang Qing to deciding to stay at the Lu Fu temporarily, it was only half an incense stick's worth of time. Big Ice Cube, is there a need for us to be in such a hurry? She didn't understand why the Big Ice Cube wanted to stay at the Lu Fu. Listening to the sound of the carriage moving through the busy city, Xiao leaned on the couch with a leisurely expression. The most direct way to understand a person is when he's unprepared. Chu Qingyan deeply agreed and couldn't help but give a thumbs up. The big ice cube is really brilliant. She thought that the big ice cube probably wanted to properly tidy up his fief, extracting the essence and discarding the dross. Officials who were inhumane, withdraw. Officials who were upright, stay. She didn't know which category this Yang Qing belonged to. It was debatable. That was why the big ice cube made this move. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.